It must be that Chinese food, but he's still sweating.
Oh, dude, don't even
We're
start.
live.
And we're live. Still gassy like a motherfucker, you know.
Good morning, all you beautiful starlights, grand rising, you illuminated beings out there, alchemical beings, beings of light.
Crazy people like myself.
How is everyone doing here this morning? Start off with some little Johnny jokes.
Oh no.
Who is it that I'm hearing? Is it me? It must be me.
It's gotta be you.
It is me. Fuck, it is me. Okay.
I'm still trying to share out.
Okay, we
Share
got
it out, guys. Share it out. Let's unplug humanity together. Sharing it to a stream will help.
yes, that helps a lot. So we got this. We're muted over here. And then okay, we're good. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing this morning? All you beautiful souls. My name is Omar. I'm a host here at Watchers Talk, coming at you guys from the West Coast, British Columbia, Canada, on this foggy morning, but about +2 out. Quick weather report from the West Coast, Vancouver. Mountain Devil, nice to see you. Welcome. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Richard Minnick, welcome. Nice to see you again, brother. Oh, look, there's Ride the Frequency. Hello, Ride the Frequency. And who else is in the house? Mountain Devil. Coffee, anyone? Yes, please. I will take a coffee, please. No sugar.
Go
I will
ahead,
take
Stone.
it black.
Yep.
I will
I got
take that
2 on
black.
the go.
Hello, Mountain Devil. You said hello. I was being rude. So hello. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here this morning with us. We truly appreciate you. Oh, look, there's Stone Hobbit. Good morrow, roomies. Should be a fun day today. Absolutely. Yesterday was an amazing day. It was
Good
so
morrow.
amazing that I had a hard time going to sleep last night, but I fell asleep afterwards anyways. Oh, look, there's our beautiful sister from another mother, Constance
Hey,
Victoria
Constance.
Briggs. Nice to see you, Constance. She is amazing. Constance is going to be coming on when? Let me give you guys a quick date here on Constance Victoria Briggs. We have her scheduled coming up here. Boom. Where are we? We have Constance on March 19th, our day 8 on Saturday at 3:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's going to be an epic upload, as it always is. If you guys didn't see Constance or don't know who Constance is, check out Full Spectrum Universe as well as Watchers Talk. We have some videos with her in our archives, so go and check that out.
Look, that's at 11:11 a.m. too. She left that message in Eastern Standard Time, 11:11 a.m.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to Constance. She's busy. She just wrote a book, and looking forward to that one. This lady is amazing. I resonate with the moon, right? I've been looking at the moon for a long time, and I've even explored the idea of the time when there was no moon in our skies. And there's a lot of good evidence to suggest that perhaps the moon wasn't always there, because when we look at the astrological literature across time, it doesn't tend or speaks about the moon, the biggest lunar body in space next to us, and kind of just conveniently they don't talk about it, and then suddenly they started to talk about the moon. And then we have the Acadians. The Acadians are the I guess they would be like a form of an indigenous aboriginals of the Greeks. They used to live
they're like the Cretans. They
right.
derived from the islands of Sardinia and Crete.
Yeah, long time ago, before there was even a Greece and before there was a Rome, anything like that. And interestingly enough, who was it? Emmanuel Boloski talks about the Acadians, that they used to live in forests, and they used to feed off of berries and acorns. Now, I'm not too sure if he's literally talking about that they used to eat berries and acorns, because I'm not quite sure how you can eat acorns. I'm sure there's a way maybe back in the day.
You can. There is a way. I
Yeah,
do
tell
it.
us. Give us
You
a
can
download.
actually make acorn grit bread. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yes, it takes a lot of patience. Okay, because you've got to crush up your. The best way that I found is you crush up your acorn. Okay, you get the inner seed out of the outer shell, and then you crush it up, and then you wash it and you boil it. You tip that out. You do this half a dozen times. You can taste the stringent of if it's still there. If it has that rough taste on your tongue and in your mouth, you got to keep washing it. And once you've washed that out, then you can dry it out, grind it down, and use it as flour to make your bread.
Oh, how cool. See, there's a download right there. I didn't know that, so now I have a better understanding of it. So he used to say that they used to live in the mountains and in the woods, and they would feed off of acorns and berries. And this was before there was the moon in our skies. And then we have Aboriginals in Colombia that speak about the time before there was the moon. And then when I think about the acorns and the berries, and there's like stories from the Aborigines in Australia that say the same thing, that there was a time when there was no moon in our sky, and then suddenly one day it showed up. So we really have to question that, right? So if we have our ancestors telling us that there was no moon in the sky, we have to take that and we have to buy that, because when we look at the mainstream, the legacy media and the legacy academia, I think we should call it the mainstream academia, the legacy academia, they'll tell you
epidemia, we'll call it, because it's an epidemic with misinformation.
Oh yeah. That's a good one, epidemia. Yeah, those guys, you can't believe a word they say, because they're telling us that, oh, the moon's been there for 4.5 billion years, and without it the earth just wouldn't be around, and we would have 10-mile high tsunamis that would just kill everything. But when we look at history, it just doesn't seem to be that way. Not only that, if we look at John Shaughnessy, for instance, he talks about the earth's axis is just going like that, right? And then he says, in one of his videos, that, and in fact he talked about it the other day, that at one point the earth was in the same axial position as Uranus is, right? So it was locked on its side. So that goes to suggest, and it goes to solidify what some of the other writers and literature and philosophers have been saying in the past, that at one point, at some given time, the earth was in an upright position like this. It wasn't in a tilt like 21, 22 degree tilt that we have today. It used to be an upright like that, kind of like a top, right? You ever spin a top? Right? You spin a top, it centers itself and it spins, and then you touch it and it goes into that wobble. That wobble, imagine it to be the precessional cycle.
Yes.
Right. So, that precessional cycle. So once the earth comes out of that and it levels itself out again, and then it goes up, because a spinning object is going to want to straighten itself out. So once it straightens itself out, that's what the ancestors were saying, that there was only a small polar cap in the North Pole and a very small polar cap in the South Pole, and the entire planet had the same temperature. There were no seasons. There was no summer, spring, fall, autumn, winter, whatever. There was none of that. One solid temperature, 25, 26 degrees, all day, every day, forever. And that was probably the time when there was the water canopy on the earth as well, right? And then things were like really huge, and then things looked like they were much closer to us, because the water was really working as a, what do you call those things? A magnifying glass? Right, so it makes sense. So I don't believe what the academia says, the epidemia says, because I tend to believe our ancestors. Look what the grandmothers were telling us yesterday all day long. We have that sacred wisdom coming from them, and they were telling us that we need to go internal, and we need to listen to the internal. We need to listen to our ancestors. We need to listen to the ancestral memory that's coded within our genetic code, and there we will find the answers. Now, when we listen with our ears, not hear, listen with our ears, and see with our eyes, we can look, right? We can look, not see, we can look. And then the ancestors tell us that, hey, kids, there was no moon. The moon was brought in. It was fucking aliens. Aliens brought the moon in. Now whether, and these confused scientists, they kind of say the same thing, right? They're like, oh well, the moon is older than the Earth, and but yet it was formed at the same time with the Earth and the moon, and then oh, it was a rogue. It came in, it got caught. None of that makes any sense. None of it. So I personally think that the moon is an extraterrestrial vessel that was brought here, and it is more than likely a way station for the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki are living there, and they're monitoring us from the moon. And there's a lot of things happening on the moon. Like there's this dude, I'm not a big fan of his, but he's got good work. His name is Mike Barra. And I believe he's one of the writers for the show Ancient Aliens. And he wrote a book. I forgot what it's called, but it shows you structures on the moon, like these big pipes and bridges. And he pointed out that there's a satellite dish on the moon that is the size of a football field. Now,
yes, I've seen it.
Now, whether you look at the American football field or you look at the British soccer field, regardless, it's still pretty big. And if you have a satellite dish that big pointed right at the Earth, right, like literally pointed directly at the Earth, and that's not natural. So there's something going on there. There's something very strange going on there. And I think it's ET. Plus, it rings like a bell for hours and hours and hours and hours after. Let me hear your guys' thought. I'm just running off with my lips.
I like that story of the bell where the Russians shot some sort of atomic weapon and made it ring for 3 days.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say this. You know how there's star seeds? It seems like you're a moon seed. There's something going on in the moon. And, I mean, there's a lot of, I want to say, theories on what it actually is. But I honestly think that it was towed into orbit around this planet. And what I mean by that is there was this time where this world was unstable, and to stabilize the oceans and the geomagnetical field or the electromagnetic field, they had to bring some sort of orbiting body to make it replicate what it looked like on their planet, whatever that system or that type of being was. And from there, once that happened and everything calmed down, is when we started to see the development of the dinosaurs and things like that. Because habitable life wouldn't have, if there was no moon, I don't believe that habitable life would be the same, right? Especially with the interior cores of the Earth and the magma activity at that time. It was very volatile.
Okay, let me be the devil's right-hand man here. Right. It's interesting, but, I wonder, because in order for the moon to have an effect on the Earth, it would need to have mass. And if it has mass, then it has gravity, and that mass and gravity would pull on the Earth and it would have an effect on the Earth. But if the moon is hollow, as we suspect that it is, and it rings like a bell, then it wouldn't have the mass or the gravitational pull to affect the Earth in the way that the epidemia is telling us that it will happen, because the moon would have to have mass. E equals mc2, right? Old Einstein. Well, Einstein's wife, anyways, not Einstein. You guys should know that Einstein's a fraud. Right? Einstein didn't come up with his theories. It was actually his wife that wrote all the papers. He put his name on it because back in those days, you guys know, women have been hated for thousands and thousands of years. And how dare a woman come up with like this type of theory? No way, only a man can come up with it. So with that type of retardation happening in the mind, like, she was forced to just let Einstein have it. He signed his name on it. He played the role really good. That's why when he won the Nobel Peace Prize, he gave all that money to his wife because he knew that it was hers, and kudos to him that he did that. So, he gave it to her. But anyways, E equals mc2. So if we take that into play.
Well, you're looking at planetary, just regular planetary, like basically science or mathematics of regular planetary things. If this is a base or it's metal on the inside. What's to say they don't have machines that can facilitate mass or air
Yeah, yeah.
gravity or use
I was
anti-gravity,
hoping you wouldn't
or
say that.
keeps an attractor beam locked around, like there's a specific spot on planet where there's like a Star Trek tractor beam that keeps the moon within that orbit, so it
Yeah, I
simulates an
catch you.
orbit, and after a certain amount of time it stays there.
Yeah.
I catch you there. That's a good call. I didn't take technology into my hypothesis, so I take the retardation back.
Well, no, this is why we have these conversations, and I love that you play devil's advocate. I love when we do that, me and you go back and forth, because people think that we think alike all the time, and we actually think different on a lot of things.
Yeah,
But
we disagree on more things than we agree on.
that's probably true. That's probably true. But we pose a very good front while we're on camera. No, but we do. There's a lot of main baseline things that we feel the same on, and we have these conversations sometimes that go so deep, and none of those are usually on camera. They're usually
Yeah.
on a messenger, or we'll be on a
Yeah, we
video
do a
call and
call.
talk about it. It's really wild. It's really
Yeah.
wild. We should start recording those conversations, because they get out there. They get really wild.
Yeah, those are
Here's
private conversations, and I would just rather leave them private and not make them public, right? Because we're really brainstorming at that time, tossing ideas, and
Oh, for sure.
know,
I'm just
really,
saying, if they could
it's
only see. That's
best
all.
conversations at the moment are the ones that you're having and you go in depth. You don't need to name names. You don't need to name the gore factor. If you just talk about the experiences, you'll find the commonalities. I wanted to jump in and say, have you questioned the craters on the moon? The depth, the shape, the size, how they're all very the same.
They look like blaster pockets, or they were carved out by some sort of machine, which maybe is one of the ways that if there is metal underneath, they use those craters as access points for either spaceships to go inside, or for military, like a hatch. At the bottom of some of those craters is just hatches. And if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't go down there, because you can't breathe on the moon. You could float down there really quickly because of gravity. You'd be like, wee, and just kind of down a hole. But there's a lot of different reasons. And what Omar was talking about before is that satellite dish. There's also a facility that looks like it has a giant cannon on it. And
yeah,
that cannon is pointed directly at somewhere, like I forget exactly where it's pointed to, but it's pointed to the Earth. It's not pointed away from it. That's not the dark side. It's pointed at something. And I bet you that that's pointed at probably Mariana's Trench. And if they so feel the need to eliminate, Earth as it stands, that's how they do it. Turn on the cannon,
What if that cannon in itself is some sort of like a receiver or a transmitter of sorts, and that is connected to the Saturn moon matrix? Because what if the moons of Saturn are, well, okay, let's go into this a little bit. What if I've hypothesized this in my Saturn presentations, that, and there was an author too, I forgot his name now, Bergen, something like that. The book is called The Ring Makers of Saturn. So let's hypothesize and that the Saturn rings are artificial, that some of it is natural, but the rest of them have been enhanced, and that they are crystalline based. And if they're crystalline based, then we have these artificial moons around Saturn, like Mimas and Iapetus and things like that. You can clearly tell that those are artificial moons. There's one called the Walnut Moon, and there is a 15-mile high mountain ridge that goes on its equator, and it looks like they took the top part and the bottom part, put it together and welded it together. And then there's a bunch of hexagons on it too. Bunch of hexagon on Mimas, bunch of hexagon on Iapetus. Hexagons seem to have something to do with something here. But what if those moons are harnessing the frequency, the vibration, the distortion of Saturn, and then those rings are amplifying that distortion, and then these moons are picking it up, and then they're transmitting it to our moon, and then our moon is picking it up and then transmitting it via that cannon type thing or that satellite, and is pointed directly at the earth in order for us to experience this false reality, this simulation that we're in, and that the distortion that's coming from Saturn that's being transmitted to the earth is causing humanity to vibrate at a denser level. Now, I watched a little program of sorts a little while back that let me bring myself on camera. I'm done my work.
Yeah, come on screen, bud.
Now, I watched a video that said that they had these two mice, okay, in a maze, and they let these mice go, and they had food around, cheese and stuff, and these mice were going around the maze, and they were doing excellent, very smart mice, right? Very, very cool mice, and they're going around, and they were able to maneuver their way through the maze and find the cheese, and they were all good. And then they turned on some kind of a frequency, right? They wouldn't say what type of frequency it was. Good thing, because I'm sure people will try to replicate that, but they emitted some sort of a frequency onto these mice, and these mice instantly went crazy. They had no idea what was going on, and then they redid the experiment, and they put cheese down and food, and they let these mice out. And with this frequency on, these mice were confused. They had no idea where to go. They were climbing over the things. And then once they saw each other, they started fighting. They ignored the food altogether and started fighting each other, biting each other. And then the interesting thing is that as soon as they lifted the frequency off of these mice went back to being docile again. So my hypothesis is that within this Saturn moon matrix that we're interacting with, and this frequency that's coming our way, is what if that frequency is causing us to behave in the manner that we've been behaving for the past several few thousand years? Because prior to that, we were a peaceful, loving civilization. We didn't war with one another. We telepathically spoke with one another. We built things. We cooperated, and we shared our ideas and things. And then suddenly this happened. And conveniently enough, this began happening after the Anunnaki showed up. You dig? After the Anunnaki, this started to happen. And then more than likely, the moon showed up too when the Anunnaki showed up, right? Because they needed a way station. They needed some sort of a thing. And this is what I'm hypothesizing. And I feel that perhaps the Anunnaki are working with what Carrie Ann was talking about last night, these plasma parasitic beings, AKA the archons, and dark entities, shadow beings, whatever you want to call them. I think the Anunnaki work for them. And then they're the ones that told these guys to go ahead and weaponize our solar system so that they can control us in the way that they are controlling us, right? So, and then the Black Knight satellite on it's well. So it could be that because this Black Knight satellite is in an north to south orbital orbit like that, when usually weather satellites go like this, right? The reason why satellites go like this, the weather satellites, is because the planet is turning like this, and the satellite's going like this. It'll capture everything on the planet. And then communication satellites are on an equatorial orbit like that, right? And then the weather satellites are like this. So if we got fucking the Black Knight satellite up here that's rotating like this, and if it's picking up the frequency that's coming off of that satellite dish on the moon, right, and then it's transmitting it down like this onto the Earth. Imagine the Earth being here, and then this frequency from Black Knight coming down like this. It's going to cover the entirety of the entire planet. And everybody on the planet is going to resonate like that. Maybe, in some places, the frequency is very strong, like in the Middle East. You take a look at the Middle East, going, pretty much from Israel, Palestine, Iran, Iraq, Syria, all the way to Iran, right? And then once you get to India, it's pretty cool over there. People don't like to fight in India, but just when you get to Iran, right, that whole area is just been war and violence for like thousands of years, and there's really no need for that. But I feel that it's the Saturn vibration that's being emitted from the moon onto us, and then that's fucking us over. So if we take the moon and get rid of it, right, I bet you humanity goes back to being normal. And I don't feel that there will be 10-mile high tsunamis and things like that, because I just don't feel that even with technology, you know, that removing the moon from our orbit would really have all that many consequences. Maybe there'll be a bit of a rattle, a few earth shakes, maybe a couple tsunamis here and there, but that's pretty much it. I don't think we would have any more damage than that. Okay, your guys' turn.
I'll let Stone go first. I mean, that's.
Are you sure about that, mate? Oh God. Okay.
Let's
go ahead.
First off, I see. I've had a couple of occasions where in one of them they shot me off planet, and it was the noise I heard when I went, and it was like really, really thick metal banging together and being joined. I used to look at the stars when I was a kid, and what I see now is very different to what I saw then. I see that every star out there has a partner. Now, I've been sky watching for at least 30 years and taking photos of the full moon, and the moons change every time it changes. We're coming into a full moon right now. I'll show it to you tomorrow night. Morning. Anyway, where I'm at living here, I am on the west coast of New Zealand. The west coast has black sand. On the east coast, it has white sand. Now, I'm on what's known as a Waitomo, which is there's tunnels underneath and water's flowing. We're on a water table. So I now am having white sand replacing the pebbles and stones that used to be in my river. And the thing is, I'm so close to the black sand beaches that I'm having difficulty trying to analyze this. I know it's there. But what I've seen is I've seen full pieces of land through a spring totally just fall away. I've got videos of it. Just fall away and wash just within a couple of hours, boom. And to me, that is when the frequencies come in from the planets. And we get that burst. We also get that underground tsunami, which causes the water tables to change, which causes the frequencies to change. I've been in a planet on a few of my other journeys, and what I've seen is the North and South poles are an axis. They're when it comes aligned with the center Earth, and that lines up, and this whole massive hole opens up, then you've got access. And I do believe that we started off as a seed planet, like the moon. The moon being towed in, it is a base. Inside there'll be massive activity. I don't see the moon like anybody that I know that sees the moon. I see it as a base. I have an alien contact, and I've nicknamed him the Flasher. We don't have names and places they come from. We just have contact. And in these flashes over the years, I've learned that this is a form of communication. It's not just flash, yes, no answers. It's when you see that beam of light come in, you have just been fed a massive download. Whether or not you can translate it is another issue. But the more you are in that frequency of these flashes, the faster you're going to open up, because they want to contact with you at your comfortable level. Sometimes you get yelled at, and I get yelled at. But what they've showed me is, at one stage, I was watching planets grow, and I wasn't alone. I had a friend doing it with me at the same time, and we were trying to work out how these rings around these planets were getting bigger, and the different colors. I analyze everything. I analyze the elements. Everything rusts. You just got to see what the breakdown process is. This is alchemy. So when I saw these things growing, then I got into the satellites around the planet, and I started watching them go by, and I started watching them get more. And then you see, I go out there now, and I can show you roadways through the stars. All right. I have watched the stars communicate. So when you're talking about this massive as beam out there, I've seen stuff shoot across the sky that there is a form of communication. Two, there's something firing weapons up there at other ships coming in. Three, there are flashes and signals sent between Stargate to Stargate. These Stargates, when you see them, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting massive goosebumps. When you start seeing and working out the diameter of where these stars are communicating, and that you can tell it is not a normal light that comes from it when they light up. Okay. You stand there and watch that, I can guarantee you will see something come in that space. There's a zone. Okay. And if something comes in and it's not meant to, the ET that I communicate, who I call Flasher, his crew or his whatever the job description they have, I've seen them fire at these ships coming in. I've been sitting in my backyard and I've had these things come in out of nowhere, drop over top of the house, shoot between me and my friend's seat, and shoot off like a white soccer ball with a tail. It's moving fast, and it's more of a living entity movement than it is a mechanical. That you tell the difference after doing this. So the satellites around these other planets eventually became the rings, and I believe that is what is happening with the devices that are going up there right now. Everything that they've got, we have absolute no privacy already. These beings that have come in and communicated with me over the years, they've shown me what and how to break this illusion. And that is what I do. I accept it, I acknowledge it, and this is fantastic. Anyway, I've yabbered on. Somebody else jump in.
All right, so I'm going to keep it real short and simple and look at what we have now on this planet with direct energy weapons, where they use frequencies to make people sick, to make people basically change the brain wave patterns is what they're trying to do. And I think that if they did that on a grand scale, like Omar was saying, and how it's changed the planet, definitely it could be that doesn't even have to be entities. That could be our own people doing that or working for those dark overlords. So with Saturn and I know you guys are a lot more versed in the Saturn sphere than I am, but the symbolism that we see on this planet could directly correlate to what Saturn represents to that far satanic style cult group. And I think that their time is up. The light's been shined on them, but I think once the it's like when you overturn a board and it's in the woods and it's been sitting there for 6 months and all the bugs come scurrying out after you flip it over and the sunlight hits it. So I think I'm going to go that far because that's all I got right now. And I think that we're going to have that point where we're going to see exactly what Saturn means and why they symbolize and idolize it so much. So that's it. Landing it right there.
Okay, Rob, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to give a really quick download on Saturn. And while I'm doing that, can you please jump in to the private chat and direct Ron on how to bring his slides up, please? And
Sure.
I will do a quick download on Saturn, on what I'm talking about. Now, guys, this is an extremely long presentation. It's about 7.5 hours long, and if you guys are interested in watching this, it is on under the video archives of Watcher's Talk. It's called the false something or rather. Anyways, let me come over here. So the false perception. So I started this off as, I'm going to subject you to a blitz. That is, I am going to subject your mind to tremendous onslaughts, and you cannot get up and leave because you're caught. Not because I'm holding you prisoner, but because something in you will prevent you from leaving, while another part of you is going to go truthfully berserk. So brace yourself, because this is Saturn, the false perception. This is a false planet, guys. This Saturn is not really what it appears to be. It is a holographic. It is a holographic field of information, and here are some symbols that are related to Saturn. The Saturn cult is ingrained into nearly. Let me bring this up a little bit for my notes. Saturn cult is ingrained into nearly every aspect of our life, yet the true significance of Saturn can be found within secret societies and in the deepest underpinnings of religion. Is it possible that the reality we experience, I'll bring this up a little bit, it's been a while since I did this one, so hold on with me. Is it possible that the reality we experience has been hijacked by creator gods who keep us living in subservience, control, and conformity? Why do we look forward to the weekend when we are weakened? Why does the word Saturday mean Saturn's day? Why do we exchange rings when we marry? Why is there so much Saturn symbolism in religion and in the corporate world? Semitic civilization referred to the god Saturn as El, who is the supreme deity and represented by a black cube. The ancients' name of Saturn was, as mentioned, El. It is a reason why those that were chosen by El were called elites. In fact, the word elect, elder, elevated, Elohim, tempel, circle, gospel, apostle, disciple, evangelist, etc., all derive from the word cult of El. Angels are messengers of God, but God was El, and the El, as Paul Anthony Wallace has suggested, is that they are the powerful ones. So the El are the powerful ones, which is why we have the names of archangels bearing the El suffix: Raphael, Michael, Oriel, Gabriel, etc. Now, if my mouse stops, come on, I hate this mouse. Having the same problem as John Cadman the other night, guys. So right here, this is the accepted ancient symbol of the sun. People think that it's a symbol of the sun that we know today, but is that symbol more likely to be the symbol, the sun we know today, or the sun we once knew? The Saturn sun, the dark sun, the black sun. In the occult, it was and is known as the old sun, and it is known the dark sun and the dark lord. So I'm not going to go through all of them. And here is the reason, the Lord of the Rings and the Olympic rings and all of that, it derives from the rings of Saturn. These are the rings of Saturn, and this is where it really comes from. And now Saturn also has been long symbolized as an eye. And here are some examples of the symbols that have been used in the past. And even right now, this may look familiar to you guys. The eye of providence that we see on the top of the pyramid of the dollar bill, the all-seeing eye. Here's another expression of Saturn being represented as an eye. Now, at some given time, way back in the past, there was a huge, enormous ejection of mass that came from Saturn, and when the Earth would tilt on its axis, season to season to season, when it would tilt, when you viewed Saturn from the Earth, it would appear to have like a crescent, an illuminated crescent, and that crescent would move as the axis of the Earth would turn. There's the north, the east, the west, and then the south, and then right here, this is one of the symbols that you find in the ancient world that is commonly occurring theme of Saturn. Here you have the sun, and then you have the crescent. Now, when we look at ancient Egypt, and as well as when we look at the Masons, this right here can also be the solar boat, right? So the crescent it's actually evolved over time. It's never remained the same. Here's an example of the right here, right? We have the crescent, and then right here again, that's the sound vibration, the cymatics, and that really makes a whole lot of sense, because when we look at the cymatics and when we look at the frequencies coming off Saturn, that's what it creates. Now, here are some common occurring themes that the elite like to use for the symbols of Saturn, and this may look familiar to you guys actually. Now, here's one, here's another one. Right now, when you look at this symbol, what does that remind you of? Right, you will actually see this on the aircraft of the Allies back in World War II. And also, when you go to expand your screen right here, when you go to expand it, it has the same thing. That is the symbol of Saturn, right? In fact, you're looking at this. Can you see that, somebody, where I'm pointing, where it says explore? Right, yes, this symbol right here is as well a Saturnistic symbol right there. I'll show you guys coming up right here. Here's another one. Here's some common symbology themes of Saturn as seen in antiquity. Here it is. Here's the crescent, and then there's the sun. And here's another one. Here we have the sun shining, right? The four corners of the earth, or the four rivers. And then here's the crescent again. And look, there's that symbol that I was just showing you. See right there? Right? See that symbol right there? Here's that symbol. That is the Saturn symbol, which is right there. And then here it is again, the same thing. And then we see this on the street plan of Washington, District of Columbia as well. This symbol, and again, this symbol is right there. And then moving a little further, here's another one where they've changed it up a little bit. But again, the crescent is the theme. There it is again, and then there it is again, and then here it is again, and then here is where the Saturn symbol has evolved. Instead of being a crescent like this, they've extended it. They've extended it because it forms the horns of the horned gods. So here we have the horned gods, like the Pan god, right? There's a number of them, and then here we have the all-seeing eye from the Lord of the Rings, and there's the crescent, and then there's the all-seeing eye that we see on the Eye of Providence. Here we have a symbol of Islam. Here's the crescent with the star, and here we have Saturn with the crescent. Remember, I was saying it illuminated. When the axis of the earth moved, there's the illumination. Here's the symbol from Islam that's been taken from that. So it is more than likely a Saturn-based religion, as all Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Here we have it again. This right here is the god Sin. He's the Arabian god. And then here we have the star and the crescent, and then again, right there, the star, the Saturn moon matrix is what this right here is explaining. This guy right here, this is the Brotherhood of Saturn, the Fraternitas Saturni. This occult course organization is based in Germany and openly embodies the hidden side of Saturn worship. This is very deep, guys. It goes into the Bohemian Grove. And then when you go to the Bohemian Grove, here's like all of the political leaders and the elites that are at the Bohemian Grove. And Bohemian Grove, they do a lot of crazy shit. Like, look, there's a couple of presidents right there. I believe that's Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan. Here's, and again, some of their gatherings. Thanks to Alex Jones. He snuck in and was able to expose these guys, and was able to give us a lot of images. And these guys are, here we go. Here's an image. This is what they do at the Bohemian Grove. The owl, known as Moloch, is riddled throughout history. The more commonly known occultical owl is 40 feet statue at the Bohemian Grove. To start some brief history about Moloch, the owl known by many names, including Moloch, Moloch, Milcom, Baal, or Malcolm, in Hebrew, it quite literally translates to king. And then here we have Behemothep, and we have Baal right here, and then we have the bull. Now, why the bull? Because the bull is ruled by Saturn, and of course the horns, right? Because it's the horned god. We come over here, and I would suggest the ancient bull gods was the worship of Saturn, bull gods of Mesopotamia, Apis, the bull god of Egypt. It just goes on and on. That's why we continue to see bulls with, with horns. And then here we see in Egypt, here we have the crescent again as the horns, and then we have the sun in the middle as sun worship. And then here we have it again. Here is the crescent. This also is Roman. Here we have the crescent, and then we have the sun god right there. And this is what it's looking like, right? See? Like that, like that. And then here's some American symbols that are using the very same thing. Here we have the eagle with the crescent, and then we have the star right here. But if you take the stars here in the middle, you can actually make a star out of that. Here's the Air Force Special. Again, the star, and then the star, and then the crescent. And here's another one. How appropriate. Here's the House of Mountbatten in England. The wheat symbolizes the crescent. And then here, the crown they're trying to say is part of Saturn. Why are they using the crown? Because the crown is an expression of Cronus. Cronus is the god of Saturn. So that's why they use the crown. When you put the crown onto the head of royalty, they're saying that they are agents of Saturn, of El, the powerful ones. Here we have the symbol of the United Nations, and how appropriate that they have a scope pointed onto the earth with the horned crescent. So, it's not a very good organization. Here we have an example of Rome, the two-headed eagle. Again, you have the crescent, and then you have the crown, and the crown is Cronus. It goes on and on and on, guys. It's really deep. Here's a Rosicrucian order. Again, you have the wings, and the wings are supposed to be the expression of the horned god Saturn. And here we have again the same thing, the number 8 in Bentley. That looks like a B, but in fact it's a number 8. Why is it a number 8? Because Saturn is the 8th planet from the sun. Here is one of the major secret societies in the network in the House of Mortor, known as a Maltese Cross. Now, this is kind of interesting. I'll come up with that. And then here we have the Celtic cross with the sun in the background. And then here we have the Pope John Paul. Look what he has on his chest, the Maltese cross. And right above him is the upside down cross. Right here, we have, somebody in the church. But again, there's a Maltese cross, which is part of the secret families. And then here's the crown jewels. If you take a look at the different crowns that they have, you have the symbology of Saturn on there. Here we have the Saturn that's shining in all directions, and that's where we get the term the four corners of the earth, or the four rivers of the earth. And then again, the Maltese cross. And then right here on top of the crown, you have the Maltese cross with the sun star, the black sun in the middle. Now let's break it down a little bit. Right here, right there is the Saturn. Right there is the Maltese cross. Right there is the Saturn with the four corners of the earth. And all around it, you have the number 8, the X. The X means to cross over. And then right here, this is the symbol I was telling you when we looked at the Earth, or Saturn. Saturn would shine like in all directions. And this is where we get the star that the kids get when they do really good. The gold star, the silver star, the bronze star, things like that. That is coming from Saturn. Here we take a look at St. Peter's Square. Again, St. Peter's Square. Here we have the crescent, the horned god, and in the middle we have Saturn, with shining its light in all direction. Here we have Ratzinger, the Pope that was too demonic for the church, so they let him go. And here, look, he's holding again. Here's the star in the middle, the four corners of the earth, another expression of Saturn. Here's a good one. Here is, people say that's Satan, right? But it's been inverted, because this right here is I love you. And these guys have changed that from I love you to Satan. I love Satan. I love Satan. You see that? This is how these guys have inverted that. So very, very demonic. Let me go on. Here's another symbol of the hand symbol of like this, of Satan, which we also find on what do you call that, in the District of Columbia. This is a video. I'm not going to play it. Might be copyright. Now, look, here's all of the political leaders around the world giving you Satan. I love Satan. These guys love Satan. Here we have Eminem with Satan. Here we got Barry Obama with Michael Obama, more than likely. And here he is, giving us the Satan sign. Here we have this fella. I forgot his name, but Bahamutep. Here we have the French president, again with the Satan. Here we have Anton Levy. He was the leader and the founder of the Church of Satan and the former head of the Church of Satan. And he's meeting John Kerry. He's an ambassador and also a Secretary of State, something like that, for the Americans. Here we have Ronald Reagan, loving on old Satan. Oh boy, here we go. Here's the Bushes, the legacy family. This guy loves Satan. There's old George Bush with Satan, family religion, guys. And then here we have his wife with Satan, and they both are loving on Satan. And oh, boom, look, there's his daughter, Bush's daughter, in with Satan as well. So all three of them are into Satan. So it makes you go think what Jeb and all these other guys are up to, because it's a family religion. Here we have the prime minister of the Russian Federation, and then here we have President Putin. And look at Putin. He's just looking at him, and he's not satanic. And this guy right here, look, he's flashing him the Satan symbol. That's why this guy's not around anymore, because Putin is fighting the New World Order. And here we go, right here. Here we have William Mountbatten loving on Satan. Here we have Spider-Man loving on Satan. Here we have Metallica loving on Satan. Here, what's this guy's name? Drake or something? Look, he's
Drizzy Drake.
Yeah, there you go. He's got the owl on his chest, and what is the owl? That's Moloch. Moloch from the Bohemian Grove, the satanic god. Here's another one. I've got her name, but look, she's got Bahamutep on her shirt. Here is Beyonce, I believe, dressed like Bahamutep. Check this out. This is a Katy Perry at some sort of awards. Look, they're wearing horns and loving on Satan all openly. These guys are extremely satanic. Look, here's another one. All of these guys. Look, I think this is Lady Gaga. Dressed up like Satan. Here is Bruce Jenner's daughter. Take a look on her chest, Bahamutep. Here's this lady. I forgot her name, but again, Bahamutep. It just goes on and on and on, guys. It's just too much to say. Look, she's wearing a ring with Bahamutep. Here's another one, Bahamutep. Here's another one. This guy right here, what's his name? Christian Bale. He thanked Satan when he got his Golden Globe for playing Dick Cheney. Go figure. Here's another one, Madonna with Satan. I swear this girl works from a fucking handbook, because she's just right into this. Take a look at that. Here's the two towers. The two towers are actually, I didn't get into that earlier, but the two towers are evolved from the crescent. The crescent turned into the two towers. If you guys want to watch, go back and watch this 7-hour presentation. It's very, very deep. I'm just brushing over this. Again, look, here we have one of the videos, all wearing horns, dressed up like Satan. Her one eye covered like this. One eye covered. One eye covered means the all-seeing eye of providence. Again, you can see that eye on the southern pole of Saturn. Very interesting. Again, right here. Again, right there, covering the one eye. There's the one eye that we see on the dollar bill. And here
it's
we
the all-seeing eye of Providence, Rhode Island.
That's right. Here we have, Saturn, it's astrologically it is ruled by Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled by the goat, and then there's the goat, right? Because the goat is the expression of Saturn, and then we have goat, the pan god. Here is another one, the panda goat god, and then it goes on and on. And here, have a look at this one.
It's so connected,
Uncle,
bro. It's so connected. Like you've
yeah,
literally gone through pop culture, executive branches. Like this is all of this stuff is connected, and you know it's connected through people. People is the connecting factor of it. So
yeah, take a look at this with the Uncle Sam, I want you. Right, Uncle Sam is the expression of Behemothep as he comes in. See, have a looky-loo. This gift clearly shows it. And this right here, guys, is not only in the United States, but it's in England, in Australia. And this is Uncle Sam. He wants you. You know, he wants your soul, your spirit, your essence. This right here, again, the bullhead with horns. And then again, inside the bull, back in the Roman days, they used to put people inside it, light a fire underneath, and when they would scream, the bull would sound like Saturn. Again, right here, this is a crescent holding the sphere, and then from there, it evolved into the two pillars. And then from the two pillars, we can see it on the Masonic works. There's some more Masonic work. Again, the two towers. Here's the crescent right here. Again, the two towers, there's the all-seeing eye. And then let me just move forward right here. I was saying the number 8, numerology, the Saturn is number 8. That's why it's the planet of death. 8 is infinity. It just goes on forever and ever and ever. They gave it the infinity. Remember the I love Satan, right? These guys like to invert that kind of stuff. And here we have a spider, an 8-legged spider, and this is the Nazca lines down in Peru. And again, here is the horns, and then it's an 8, the number 8, and then there's the sphere, the sun sphere. Here is the magic cube of Saturn right here. This is the magic cube of Saturn, because in numerology, you don't have double numbers. You take the numbers, you add them to come up with a single number, and in the magic cube, the magic square cube of either Saturn or even the Masonics, no matter how you count this, you can go up, you can go this way, you can go on a diagonal. It doesn't matter. It will always be number 15. And when you take that 15, you equal it, comes to 666. And we have the number 666. Now, the number 666 is actually a sacred number, but the dark occult, I'm not, hammering the Masons here, because I believe the Masons are actually the good guys, but the inverted, the people that are on the very top of the pyramid, they've inverted it and they're using it for dark purposes. Here is the sigil of Saturn, and this is also the sigil of the Freemasons as well, and also is connected with the magic cube. And here we have the black and white checkered floors. When you go into a church or whatever the case may be, you see the black and white. That black and white is supposed to be about confusion and crossover, and also it is an example of the magic square cube. Here's a little video that I put together, and it shows you all of the churches, well, not all of them, but a majority of the churches around the world that are using the checkered floor, and that is all part of the Saturnistic worship. So here we go. Just very short video. Rob, let me know when Ron is ready, and then I'll jump off.
we got everything loaded up, so we're just about ready.
Okay. So I will end it right here. Let me just what is it that
hold on? I'm sharing out the links to the Saturn Part 1 and Part 2 presentations.
Okay, and then
to go see it. There you go, guys. Part 1 and Part 2.
So right here, this stuff is very interesting. Right here, the hill of Saturn and the Capitoline Hill that they have next to the Saturn Mound in where was that? The hill of Saturn, which is the bloodline family gathering place. That's where the skull and bones and all of that. And then when these guys moved into America, they brought their Capitoline Hill to America, and then now America has a Capitol Hill, and that Capitol Hill is part of the Capitoline Hill, the hill of Saturn. It just goes on. Here's a quick.
Now they've got the Capitol Police acting like Stasi too. That's going around, and they're actually going into Florida, Miami, and parts of the country and creating their own police force, like a secret police.
Yeah,
so they're called the Capitol Police. It's wild.
Yeah, here's an image that I was showing earlier. Remember, I was saying it's marked out in the grid plan of Washington, D.C. street plan. And then every circle that you see, those are all major buildings in Washington. And then they've connected, and then the streets are worked out so that they actually express Saturn. Like, here's a good one right here. Let me see this. Why did I put this on here? There was a significance to this, and
you can see it's the Mason, it's the Freemasons.
Yeah, right there.
Yep, it's got the thing.
Yeah, right there.
It's 9:10 now, brother.
And then here's the X. X marks the spot, right? I just want to quickly just show what I was talking about. I'm just done right here. Here's the hexagon. That is on top of on the north pole of Saturn, and then here is the all-seeing eye on the southern pole of Saturn, and then this is where the eye of Providence comes from. So if you guys want to watch more of that, go on after the stream when you have some free time to check out part 1 and part 2. And I actually did another one where there's all in part 1. And then afterwards, I ended up having a conversation with Rick Keefe about it. So you guys can check that out as well. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to take myself off screen, grab myself a quick coffee. Actually, let's bring Ron on.
Right? Yeah, I'm just going to read a little quick, little segment here. We got Ron Halliday, who has been investigating and writing about the paranormal for nearly 40 years. He is an author of several books, including UFO Scotland, Famous Scots and the Supernatural, and Alien Spirit. For several years, he wrote the X-Files column for the Glasgow Evening Times newspaper and has published over 200 articles. Ron lives in Scotland. Let's bring in Ron.
Hi,
how you doing, sir?
Not too bad. Thanks for that introduction. Hi, everybody.
It's very hard to hear you. Is there a way you can get closer to the mic, maybe?
Yeah, okay. How's that?
That's better? That's better.
Okay.
All right. We're going to remove ourselves off the screen and pull up your presentation.
Okay. Right.
Now, you'll be able to adjust the presentation. You'll see on the screen it says slides. All you got to do is click the arrows in which direction you want to go, whether it's right or left. So you'll see it when I bring it up here.
Okay.
So you see it at the bottom there where it says slides?
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Next slide. Yeah. Right.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. That's great. Yeah. Right. I'll just go ahead then. Because first of all, thanks for bringing me on to the conference. Delighted to be here. As was said, I've had a long-standing interest in the paranormal, particularly in UFOs and the implication on UFO sightings, alien encounters, for humanity. What does it mean? But I'm going to look particularly today at the impact it had on Scotland, where I come from. And just to clarify, in case there's anybody there who doesn't know where Scotland is, because we're not a very big country. Yeah, it's just off the coast of Europe there, the northern part of the United Kingdom. Small geographical area and a small population. There's only about 5.5 million of us. However, having said that, there have been an absolutely phenomenal number of UFO sightings. And what's fascinated me is the impact that those sightings have had on people in Scotland and how it has raised consciousness about alien entities and what it means. I mean, what is the explanation for everything that has been going on? Why has Scotland had so many UFO reports given and UFO encounters, alien encounters, given the size of the population? I mean, so much was going on that the local papers and magazines started printing many articles, for example, like this one, Alien Invasion. Suggestion was that Scotland was being targeted or visited in particular by alien entities because there happened to be so many sightings. And, it raised a question for people, Are we being visited by aliens from distant planets or what? So it did stimulate a really big debate about what it meant. You know, were people imagining all these incidents, or was it really alien contact, or was it from something else? I mean, there were all kinds of suggestions. And, you know, I found that particularly interesting, that it did stimulate people's consciousness and they started thinking about this whole subject, which I think had been for a long time hidden because people just weren't aware of the amount of, or the possibilities that we were being visited from other planets. But, you know, one of the things that particularly interested me, you know, if this was not, if you like, alien encounters, what was it? I mean, was there something else going on? I mean, were there links between UFO sightings, UFO encounters, alien encounters, and other aspects of the paranormal? You know, because in some cases, encounters only lasted a comparatively short time. And here's one particular photo that came up, you know, of a ghostly kind of figure with what was claimed to be an alien spaceship in the background. I'm not suggesting all that was genuine, but I do think it did raise the issue of just what we were experiencing, because a number of people had encounters where they could actually see through a spacecraft into the ground beyond, or cases where the spaceship seemed half solid and, if you like, half transparent. So it did raise the issue. I mean, like ghostly encounters, you know, what actually were people seeing? Were we encountering objects or entities from, you know, other dimensions? I mean, is it just too simple to say, yeah, there's something coming from a distant planet? They're traveling across thousands of miles to visit us. Now, I know this goes contrary to what a lot of people say, like the Roswell crash, which seemed like a real solid object had actually landed. But a lot of other people's experiences have not been quite, quite as solid as that, if you like. And it does raise the issue of what we're dealing with. That's sorry, it's not a particularly good slide, but I just had to take it off of a newspaper that got folded up. But as I was saying, you know, what are we dealing with? Because this lady, Pat McLeod, was driving along the road. She was going to the doctor's just for a straightforward visit, nothing, you know, in particular, just a checkup. And as she was going along, she saw this object, which is in the background there, coming down over the road. And it was a large object. And she said, yeah, it looked like Saturn. That's how she described it. And the newspaper did a drawing of it. She said it was like a flaming ball in the middle with this, you know, Saturn-like circle round it. And she watched it come down and land, as she thought, on a piece of waste ground. So she stopped the car, she got out and went over, expecting to see this object lying. There was a large object, it was about 20 feet across, expecting to see it. But when she got there, there was absolutely nothing there. The object just seemed to have disappeared. And she expected, because she rang up the newspaper and said, you know, she's seen this object. She expected that many other people would actually have seen it as well, but she was astonished that nobody, not a single person, reported seeing it, which again raises the question of what are we dealing with? Are these solid objects? Are these objects from other dimensions? You know, how do we explain these sightings or these encounters where one person alone sees it and nobody else sees it? And as I'm sure as you're aware, there have been, you know, many similar reports like that, where people see something, sure everybody else has seen it, and find that, yeah, they're the only ones. So, I mean, is it some kind of psychic encounter, or just exactly what's happening? Just brief history of UFO sightings in Scotland, in case anybody's interested. You know, I mean, like a lot of places, there were reports of strange objects seen in the sky way back in the 19th century, reported in Scotland, and, you know, I'm sure plenty of other places stretching even further back, you know, as you know from some of the writings from the ancient world. One thing that was often reported was balls of lightning traveling across lochs or lakes. as you might call them elsewhere. So there were many sightings of balls of light. But I mean, the first recorded sighting that I have took place in 1937 when a man wrote to me, and said this he had seen what looked like a spaceship flying across the sky, and it looked solid. So that's the earliest sighting I have had, which actually predates, the 1947 era, which is supposed to have brought in the first real solid sightings of flying saucers, or UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. And the first, as it were, solid sighting, in the sense that the chap actually did a drawing of it and explained to me exactly what he'd seen, took place 1947, Portobello. Obviously, I won't know where that is, but it's an area of Edinburgh down by the sea. And he claimed to have seen what looked like a spaceship with an actual person inside, solid object again. But he was also surprised that nobody else seemed to see it. So this was only reported to me, 40 years after the event. So I really couldn't check up as to whether it was possibly something else that he'd seen, but certainly that coincided with the first reporting in the USA of, that's sparked off our modern UFO sighting era. So just a couple of books, that I've written about Scottish UFOs. And to state the obvious, but again, it's curious because UFOs come in all shapes and sizes. There's a massive variation in the appearance of UFOs. I mean, there's some, these pictures will all be copyright, obviously. There's some photos of what people have claimed to have seen. They're not genuine, I don't think, but that's the kind of thing people have claimed to have seen. And there's another bunch. And, there's some similarity, but there's an awful lot of difference. So, I mean, why is that? I mean, why do we get all these different types of UFOs reported? I mean, does it mean we've been visited by, all sorts of planets or what? I mean, it is a bit of a mystery, which, is quite puzzling if we are dealing with genuine UFO alien entity sightings. There's a kind of typical, I would regard as a typical UFO, sort of saucer-shaped silver thing. And this was a painting made by a chap who had an account in one part of Edinburgh, and his widow presented me with the painting, which I really appreciated. And then again, a completely different, I hope you can see that, it's not a great picture, but that's the best I could do with it. That's a dumbbell-shaped UFO from the 1990s in Glasgow. Glasgow, the biggest city in Scotland. And then, completely weird sighting. I just produced this because, this is a drawing the chap did he was living in Shetland, an island to the north of Scotland. And he sent me this drawing of his encounter. And what he saw, he claimed to have seen, was this object. He was standing in his kitchen window looking out, and he saw this object coming down, and he described it as a world. He said it was a globe of the world surrounded by this burning kind of light. He said it looked leather-like, and it's sat there on the ground for several minutes and then shot up. And sometimes, you do find it hard to understand exactly what people were seeing. But anyway, I spoke to the chap and he sent me quite a lot of details, of what he had seen. So again, you get these encounters of these sightings which seem to, defy any kind of obvious explanation. I mean, can we really believe that something came down, globe shaped, had drawings of the world on it, but and these flaming all around it? I mean, it's really very strange. As I said, I chatted to the chap, and he sent me a lot of details, and I'm inclined to believe this is what he actually saw. And again, another drawing from a witness, a completely different shape, like two triangles on top of each other. Again, viewed from his window, convinced this is what he saw, with these kind of red lights all around it. So even in Scotland, you get Sorry, folks, I do have a bit of a tickle in my throat. So again, you get people saying all kinds of different things. I mean, so what does it say about what people are experiencing? I mean, are these psychic experiences? Are these genuine objects? Here's something completely odd as far as I'm concerned. Spoke to this chap on several occasions. He was driving to work, came to this junction, and then he saw all these objects in the sky. Triangular shaped object, this, I don't know, he described like a large canoe. And then this, I don't know what to make of it. It seemed like a coffin with a pole down below, sort of something, you know, to support it. Again, it was completely weird, but spoke to him at length, discussed it all. He filled in various forms. So, I mean, this is what he said he saw. So, I mean, you get such a variety in UFO sightings that you do wonder just exactly what is going on. A bit more straightforward, but again, different object described, looks like a kind of flying delta-shaped object. Some claims that, in fact, you know, these black triangular-shaped things were actually planes being tested. It was down the west coast of Scotland, and there was a large base on the west coast of Scotland, a place called Machrihanish, which was a US and British air base, and it's quite possible aircraft were being tested, but for quite a time there were a lot of these objects being sighted. And in fact, I appeared on a program to discuss it because there really was a lot of interest in what was going on. So those were sightings. What about encounters? Well, Scotland has experienced a number of quite bizarre encounters. This concerned a chap called Gary Wood. He was driving along with his friend, a chap called Colin Wright. And as they were driving along, they came to a corner of the road and there was a bright light hovering over it. And the next thing they remembered was driving back along the road. They were visiting a house, but when they got there, they found that they were almost 2 hours later than they should have been. So Gary, chap in the picture there, he got quite concerned about all this. He had a lot of disturbed sleep, couldn't understand what went on. So eventually underwent hypnotic regression. And he came up with this account of being lifted out of the car and taken into what seemed like a spacecraft and meeting or being, if you like, investigated, examined various strange alien entities, like the one that you can see maybe just down below, kind of grey type creature, small one. There were tall creatures. There were other people being held there. There was a naked woman who was in great distress. So he saw all these things. And this did come out under hypnotic regression. But then afterwards, Gary started having, if you like, memories of having encountered alien entities when he was a child. So although this was, if you like, his biggest experience of UFO abductions, he did seem to think he had a bit of a history of it. And the curious thing is, which I will come back to, is that he felt that he hadn't been taken up into a spacecraft, but they'd actually been taken down into a base under the ground, which the aliens were using to, if you like, visit various places in Scotland, and in particular in that area. And he was so convinced about this that he actually spent time trying to discover where this base might be. This is certainly Scotland's most famous encounter, a chap called Bob Taylor. And this encounter was actually investigated by the Scottish police. Bob was a forester. He was walking through woods in the centre of Scotland. He did this on a regular basis, but this particular day, he came upon an object hovering above the ground. And as he stood there watching it, two spiky balls came rolling out of this object came towards him, grabbed hold of his trousers, and the next minute, he woke up. What seemed like a minute, he woke up. But it turned out he'd been unconscious for maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And this was the description of the object that he'd actually encountered. A round object, so with the flange round it, and there's an artist's description of the spiky balls that came out of him. The odd thing that it doesn't indicate there was that he could actually see through part of this into the ground beyond. So although part of it seemed solid, part of it he could actually see through. So it wasn't a completely solid object. I mean, there was some discussion about, what had he actually seen? Did this object have legs? There's a bit of a controversy about it, but at the end of the day, it was believed, according to Bob, no, this object was just actually hovering in the air. It was not resting on the ground, which did raise some other questions because there were marks left on the ground. And as I said, this encounter was investigated by the police because Bob, he had a lorry, couldn't get the lorry started. Seemed like there maybe been some interference with the lorry's engine, but he managed to he staggered home. When he got home, his wife obviously saw he was in a distressed state. His trousers were ripped. He had a cut on his head. So she rang the police, and the police came along, wondered what had gone on. They searched, couldn't find anybody. They thought maybe he'd been attacked. He'd been assaulted by some youth. There were reports that youth had been seen, not in that particular day, but in previous days. So they searched the whole woods, couldn't find a thing. They were convinced Bob was telling the truth as far as he was concerned, didn't think he was making it up. And that's been the opinion of everybody involved in the case. We've investigated, spoken to Bob. I spoke to Bob a couple of times, visited him in his house, and he was absolutely, he thought he'd had a tremendous encounter. He was quite thrilled by, he told me, he had seen something out of this world. And he was not, he never made any money out of it. He was quite honest about it. Told this story, said other people have made money out of it. I've never made any money out of it. So it's been regarded as really quite a solid UFO encounter case. And it was of such significance, and people took it so seriously that I, with one or two others, campaigned to get the site recognized, because I thought it was worthwhile. I mean, it was such a fascinating encounter, one the police had investigated, and there didn't seem to be any explanation, that, we felt that the site should be recognized. And 20 odd years ago, they put up this stone with a plaque on it, and more recently, they've actually put up signage, so you can actually be directed there and look at the site. It's changed a bit, trees have grown up, but still recognized. As I said, as I showed in one of the slides, there was a feeling that Scotland was being specially targeted by alien entities, given the number of sightings. And one area where it was felt sightings were concentrated was this village of Bonnybridge, and up sprang the phrase Bonnybridge Triangle, which is obviously a take on the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know if there ever was a proper triangle, but all we can say is that there were a lot of sightings in this particular area. Hundreds, in fact, which seemed completely bizarre, because Bonnybridge is a small, little more than a village, really. A few thousand people living there, and the number of sightings was just phenomenal. And as a result, people visited from all over the world. The Japanese film crew, German film crew, and the local councillor there, local representative, was campaigning to the government to have these sightings investigated. Needless to say, the government weren't interested, or claimed they weren't interested. I think it is significant that the Ministry of Defence in the UK claimed for decades they weren't interested in UFO sightings, but then suddenly, after 30, 40 years of denying it, began to release UFO sightings that they'd actually collected. So what the local representative was trying to do there was to get the government to investigate all these reports, because there were dozens, hundreds of reports, and local people were coming to his door saying, well, what's going on here? You know, why have people been having all these encounters and seeing all these things? And I was certainly involved in investigating quite a few of these reports. There was a lot of video taken. I can't actually show any, it's all copyright, obviously. But I can assure you that some of it was interesting. It was taken in daylight and it was shown on British TV. You know, it's a big audience. So there was a lot of material collected. I mean, what did it mean? Why were so many sightings being reported in this area? Various suggestions coming up. You know, were these psychic events? Was it for some reason a window into another dimension? What was it? Were people trying to, you know, was there some bizarre tests going on by alien beings to see what the reaction was in Scotland for some reason, just as a sample of the world, the UK? I mean, it was certainly very weird. And this went on for several years. Then suddenly it just seemed to die down. And there were still some reports, but not a high one just the last couple of years, but there was nothing like the volume. So you had this burst of UFO activity, and then suddenly, you know, it seemed to go quiet. Some people think this is, you know, start to get a bit esoteric at this particular spot. But to my mind, what are we talking about? You know, there's a picture of modern, contemporary, 19th, 20th century view of fairies. You know, what's the link between UFOs, ancient folklore, and fairies? Doesn't seem anyone at first sight, but you know, you do get some links. I don't know if you're interested in, or people are interested in, characteristics of fairies, but in the past they were believed to live underground, like some people claim. You know, their underground bases. Yeah, well, fairies were supposed to live underground. And a number of people, and I mentioned them there, Robert Lee, I'll come to Robert in a while, Gary Wood, and somebody else who had a lot of UFO encounters, believed he as well had been taken underground. So, I mean, there is that link there, and there are other links as well. You know, because, I mean, you think of fairies in films and, you know, contemporary books as these small little creatures with wings floating about. But, you know, in the past, that was not how fairies were seen. They were seen as people like us, small, but with, if you like, supernatural powers. And one of those supernatural powers was the ability to walk through walls or walk through solid objects. They also took people to underground. You know, they captured people, took people away. So there is some kind of similarity between that and ancient, you know, the ancient view of fairy people. And if you go around Scotland, you know, there are fairy knowes, fairy hills, which were believed to be entrances into fairy underground towns and cities, because it was thought that fairies, they lived just like us. You know, they had towns, they had cities, but they just lived underground and they had these supernatural abilities. And, you know, that belief carries on today. I mean, that's a site in Scotland which people bring along what's called cloth, as is believed if you've got, say, a sore arm, you rub that, get a cloth against your arm, hang it up on the tree there, and it disintegrates, then that sore arm will go away. And that's still a practice carried on. I don't know how much people believe in it, but I mean, it shows you the influence of the past on the present. I did mention, or I should have mentioned, a chap called Robert Kirk, and he was a man who back in the 17th to 18th century had encounters with fairies, wrote a book about it, and described the characteristics as being very human-like, but with these supernatural powers. And he was supposedly abducted by the fairies. Sorry, abducted by the fairies, and he did actually exist. There's his grave. Yeah. So, as I said, I mean, I do believe that there is links between modern UFO sightings and things that happened in the past to people, you know, and UFOs and the supernatural do get connected up in other ways as well. Because I've dealt with more than one case, but certainly I'll describe one particular case, again in Glasgow, Scotland's biggest city, where a woman saw an object which she thought was a UFO just outside her house. She heard a clanking on the roof, thought, oh, that's landed on my roof, or something's happened on the roof with this UFO. And the next minute there was a beam of light came down onto a staircase. And she walked up and she saw what she described as something looked like an angel. And like this figure from the painting here, had this long flowing cloak, had this sandals on the feet, and had this halo around her head. She looked like an angel. So, as I've said, I just wonder, you know, to talk about being visited by aliens from other planets, is this really what's going on? Is there something more complicated? You know, are we dealing with beings from other dimensions, from other universes? I mean, just exactly what's going on. I mean, I've spent a lot of time investigating UFOs and people's reports, but I still find a lot of it, you know, quite contradictory in a way. You know, it's not straightforward. I know people get quite worked up if you try to suggest them. Yeah, look, it's not just, you know, we're not just maybe being visited by people from vast distances away. You know, there could be an explanation nearer home. And again, you know, we've got, as I've said, you know, you just don't get UFO sighting. You just necessarily don't get somebody seeing an object. You get other things going on at the same time. And in one area, when I talked about the Pat McLeod one, you might remember, with a Saturn-like object, well, at the same time, the woman had this real strange experience. It was just within a day or two of Pat McLeod's sighting of that object. She was lying in bed and she suddenly woke up and saw a light going round the room in a quite deliberate fashion. So she felt a bit odd. So she got up, went to the bedroom window and looked out. And at the bottom of a garden, she saw an object which looked a bit like that Mothman object we described there. She said it was about 6 feet tall. It was clinging to a tree at the bottom of a garden, and it had wings. So it seemed like a human with wings. Very, really odd object. But the oddest thing is, she said, I felt really peculiar, and you think I might have been frightened, but I didn't feel frightened. I felt in a bit of a daze. So I just went back to my bed and lay down and went back off to sleep. So I don't know whether she'd been mesmerized or hypnotized or something had happened, but she was convinced that this was the object that she'd seen. And then again, going back to this kind of folklore issue and this idea that, you get a mixture of events happening. This took place back in the 1960s, and the person who had this encounter, she was only 10 years old at the time, but when I spoke to her, it was obviously quite a few years later, by which time she had grown up. She, in fact, was a social worker, dealing with social care. She had a daughter, and it was this, having a daughter, which had brought this back to her in the sense that she was concerned that something might happen to her daughter in the same way it had happened to her. And she said she lived on a farm out in the country, and she used to go walking into the wood to play. So she went there one day, as she often did. And this particular time, as she was walking through the wood, she suddenly came upon a group of blue beings about shoulder height, and she stopped. Obviously, she was astonished. She was concerned. She tried to run away, but found she was actually rooted to the spot. She could not move. The next minute, a beam of light came down, and she found herself lifted up into what seemed like some kind of spacecraft. And there she remembered being on a bed, and or on some kind of mattress or a couch or something like that. And she was examined in some kind of way. And then she didn't know how much time had passed. She was beamed back down again. And when she beamed back down, she got back, strength. She wasn't frozen anymore. She could move. So she ran all the way home. And when she got back home, she discovered that her parents were on the point of calling the police, because she thought she'd only been away for a short time, an hour or so. And it turned out she'd been away for most of the day. And after that, she felt unwell, and she lay in her bed for a few days trying to recover. Now, the interesting thing on top of this is when I spoke to this woman, as I said, she, university educated and so on, she believed, she maybe had an implant put in one of her teeth, and she was going to the dentist to have this checked out. But she was also concerned for her daughter, because she'd been in her daughter's bedroom, and she'd seen what looked like the head of Anubis floating outside the window. She didn't understand how this was connected to her particular encounter, but she felt that this was a threat or a warning of some kind, that something that was going to happen to her daughter. Problem was, I'd have loved to follow this case up, but she was concerned that her boyfriend, she wasn't married, but she had a long-term partner, he wasn't interested in this. In fact, he was quite antagonistic towards it, and she didn't want to upset him. So I wasn't able to follow it up to find out what had got on, but I do know that she really was concerned about something happening to her daughter, as had happened to her. Sorry, I maybe buzz through this bit, but there's a ceremony in Scotland called the Bury, B-U-R-Y, Bury Man ceremony, where you get this person covers themselves in these sort of bury things. I don't know what you call them, just like things you stick on, off plants and the like. And they parade through the village. This is an ancient ceremony, and there's a close up, and there's a picture of them in full dress. And I don't know, maybe somebody will know more about this than me, but I was reading a book about an alien that was claimed to have visited this tribe in Brazil. It was known as Bep-Karority, and the story goes that the villagers saw this spaceship coming down. They didn't know it was a spaceship, it was an object with flames coming out of it. They described it, came down. An individual came out, made contact with them, and he actually healed, he carried out healing and so on, and helped them before he disappeared again, shot up back into this. And the kind of thing that they, how they described him was in this way, that it's made up to show just what they claim to have seen. And I thought, yeah, all right. There is a similarity between these things, and it just made me wonder, has this kind of event happened to other people in the distant past? Have we just neglected it, ignored it? Maybe we should been doing a little bit more research into some of these ancient ceremonies, because maybe they do represent a show that in the past there has been contact with alien entities. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. Just as you well know, a variety of people have claimed to have had UFO and paranormal experiences. US President Jimmy Carter, pretty famously. I did describe in another of my books, Famous Scots and Supernatural, the kind of encounters and beliefs in the paranormal including alien entities that, famous people in Scotland did have. Based it in Scotland, obviously, because Olivia was particularly interested in that. But I'm sure that applies right across the board, right across the world. And carrying on with this particular theme, William Wallace, you might have heard of because of the film Braveheart, which did get quite a big audience across the world. And
freedom.
Freedom. Yeah.
I love that movie. Probably watched it about 200 times, Ron.
Yeah, I love the freedom. Yeah, okay.
I know it word for word.
Yeah, well, actually, the premiere was just up the road from where I live, actually. And I live in Stirling, or Bridge of Allan, just outside Stirling. The premiere was there. And of course, we had the full entourage of the well-known turning up for it. But I mean, the interesting thing for me was that a whole pile of stories grew up around William Wallace, that he had supernatural powers, that he had, in fact, he'd fought with a headless ghost. And there was this story about William Wallace going to this church, getting into a trance, and he had this experience of an object coming down, flaming object coming down, landing, and out of this flaming object appeared a woman. And she spoke to him. She gave him a sword and other things before, getting back into this craft, which, which we would, I think, say was a spacecraft of some kind, because that is how it is described, and then shooting off again. Whether that story is true, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it is interesting to show just how, there's a long tradition of encounters with strange beings. That's just a photo of, there's something called the Wallace Monument, and that's a statue. And that's some of the publicity I got for the book and Braveheart and Superpowers. I didn't claim William Wallace had superpowers. What I was saying was, that there were these strange stories associated with William Wallace as an example of how old and ancient some tales were, which linked people up to strange encounters. And, are UFOs dangerous? Yeah, well, I'm sure, we've all got stories about that. And I mean, I found this particularly kind of worrying. I mean, people have different views of abductions and encounters. Some people said, yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I liked it. A lot of people saying, it's absolutely horrendous. Didn't want anything to do with it. And so, I mean, there's a sense that, maybe UFOs are dangerous in a way. And in this particular case, it says alien expert solves dead pilot mystery. I didn't solve the dead pilot mystery. I just made a suggestion about it, because this chap, he, looking at the time, anyway, this chap, he took off in the Cessna from a place, island of Mull, which is just off the coast of Scotland. He took off from an airstrip, which wasn't a proper airstrip. It was just kind of flattened length of ground, which they used as an airstrip next to a hotel. This was on Christmas Eve. Nobody seemed to know exactly why he decided to take off. Seemed an odd thing to do. It was in the dark. This was an unlit strip. There was no way of actually finding your way back easily. Anyway, he flew off and disappeared. And they searched for months, couldn't find him. And then 3-4 months later, they found his body on a hillside, on Mull, even though the area had been searched many, many times. And there was no explanation as to how he got there. There was no marks on his body. Didn't look like he jumped out of a plane. There was no sight of the plane. And the plane wasn't found for years. Eventually it was found in the water just off the actual coast. But I mean, the chap wasn't wet. He was dry. It looked like he'd actually just walked there shortly before. And there seemed no explanation as to why this had happened to him. Where had he gone? Where had he been? Well, I researched into it, and discovered that there was an area where strange lights were often seen in the sky. And on that particular day and time that he took off, strange lights had been seen. And so I said, suggested, was there some kind of UFO encounter? Did this chap, fly up there? Was there a UFO going about, some spacecraft or something? Was this the kind of encounter? Was he abducted, taken away, and then deposited? And that was just a suggestion on my part, because I thought, this might be an answer to it. But I don't know if that's definite or not, but I certainly think it's a possibility. And then in Scotland, tornadoes, planes scrambled to intercept UFO. Again, despite claims to the contrary, there's no question about it, that our Ministry of Defence, is interested in this particular topic. Sometimes it can be seen as a threat. They try to say they're only interested if it's a threat, suggesting, they're not really that interested. But the evidence is that they were really interested and continue to be interested. They have released various UFO sightings, but the feeling is they've only released the ones that aren't that interesting, and the more interesting ones they've kept hidden away. This kind of thing is worrying, and I think it's worrying when government, they've got this tendency, just to cover things up. I mean, they're only interested in things that they think, they can put out, and people will lose interest in. Anything that's of significance, they hide away. And this particular incident, there was a chap called Robert Lee. He was a Norwegian chap. He came over during the Second World War, after the Germans invaded Norway. Came over here, and he's just stayed here. And he had a number of UFO encounters, including one near his house, which made him really interested in the subject. And he became convinced that a mountain, maybe about 10 miles away, was a site that housed underground base is used by UFOs. And he actually showed me this. You could see these silver objects. I was never quite sure what was there. I tried to walk there one day. It's quite a long walk, but I found that I got sick and dizzy. So it was such rough ground, I had to give up. But according to him, and I actually thought, he's not talking sense here. He said I'd seen these objects lift out of this underground base and fly up following these planes. I did look into it, and it was right, because there had been a squadron of Hercules planes, which are huge, as huge transport planes. They had been flying over at that time, and believe it or not, one of these planes actually crashed a few miles further along. And he was convinced that this UFO had actually caused this plane crash. Now, I'm not 100% sure of that, but I could confirm after investigating that, this flight of planes had gone over that area, and certainly one had crashed. There was no question about that. So I just wondered, was there a link? I mean, are UFOs actually interfering with airplanes? I mean, is this kind of encounter being concealed? And Scotland does have, as I've said, a lot of UFO reports. There was a lot of UFO reports down the west side of Scotland. I've got it here, Scotland's Area 51, which I'm sure everybody is absolutely familiar with from the USA. Less familiar, I'm sure, with this area. But Machrihanish, I'll say it again in case you can't follow it, Machrihanish, it was a huge base on the west coast of Scotland, closed down now because of the end of the alleged end of the Cold War, and was one of the biggest bases in Europe, and a lot of activity there. And a man who worked there, a witness who worked there, he got in touch with me and told me that he had seen a disc-shaped object. He worked there, obviously. The disc-shaped object more than once, coming in and actually landing on the base. And right, I said, well, can we meet up to discuss? He said, sure, I'll meet up to discuss, no problem. So anyway, I went to meet him up and he never turned up. So I was never sure what had happened there, because I mean, people who work there obviously, have to sign the Secrecy Acts. They're not allowed to divulge anything that's happened there, anything that they've seen. So I thought it was a pretty brave act to get in touch with me. And he was convincing about this. I thought, yeah, I'm sure this chap has actually seen something. And I had that feeling that maybe he had been shut up or told not to get in touch with me again, because obviously that is breaching the Secrecy Acts, which is a serious offence. That's the last book I brought out, Alien Spirits, and this was a summary or description, if you like, of a whole series of seances. I don't know if you're interested in seances that I held with a medium called Ray Todd. And Ray was bringing through physically, you could actually see these faces of alien, among other things, of alien spirits. And I saw a whole range of alien spirits, lizard-like things. I mean, a whole range. It was really absolutely bizarre. And this made me completely, rethink what I'd originally believed or sensed about alien encounters. That we could be actually living in a multi-universe position or multi-dimension, in that what we were seeing as aliens or alien spacecraft or whatever could be coming, could be just part of our whole life and a lot closer to us than people actually expected or believed in. It was really weird, but I mean, you'd have to read it. Yeah, so in closing, really, alien spirits, do we live in a multi-dimensional universe? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do believe that the alien phenomenon, UFO phenomenon, is just so much more complex, so much more curious, so more inexplicable, that seems at first sight, because I know people originally seemed to suggest, yeah, like Buck Rogers, as it were, showing my age a bit here, Star Trek here, there's some kind of solid UFO. It's a spaceship coming from God knows where, through a wormhole, through a, but is that what it's all about? I mean, the evidence suggests that these entity encounters have stretched back over thousands and thousands of years. So what is it? Are we meeting people from the future? Are we meeting people from another world, another dimension? I don't know. But I do actually find the whole topic not only an exciting one to investigate, but actually mind-boggling in many, many ways. Thank you.
Wow, Ron, that was exceptional. I mean, I truly believe that there is a connection from the extraterrestrial to the paranormal too, and there's dimensional, ultra dimensional. I mean, there's so many different ways we can go with it, and a lot of the evidence that you put forward today it's incredible, and I love to explore that congruency between both avenues. So I started with a show sort of in the paranormal, and that's kind of how I got my footing into the other aspects. When I started my show, I was picked up by a lot of paranormal style investigation type of a lot of people that came on, and now I've expanded to what we do now. But to hear what they experience and then to hear what a contactee experiences, it's somewhat similar, and it there's a lot of, like I said, congruency between the two.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Rob. Yeah, and I think that's what makes it so fascinating. That is such a complicated phenomenon, which brings in so many aspects. I mean, yeah,
Absolutely. And it seems as if Scotland is definitely a hot spot for UFO activity. And what's your take on why that might be? Is there something different there than a lot of other places. I mean, of course, there's hotspots, but what makes Scotland so much different when it comes to this kind of contact?
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue I've thought about because, as you say, a lot of places in the USA, masses of sightings over the years. I mean, it's just the number of sightings in relation to the population. But if I can just expand on the whole paranormal thing, Scotland's got a lot of, had loads of ghost sightings, poltergeist sightings, Loch Monster sightings, and at one time it was regarded as a hotbed of vampire encounters. So there's been a lot going on in Scotland over the years. I'm not absolutely sure why. I mean, I keep coming up with the idea, is there some kind of psychic window taking place in Scotland? Is there some sort of, I don't know, psychic waves or something? I honestly don't know exactly what the answer is. But all I know is that a heck of a lot of stuff goes on in Scotland, and I mean, there's Loch Ness, people come from all over the world just to see that particular spot.
This is my theory, and looking at Scotland's history, it is a place of a lot of traumatic style war and bloodshed and death. There is a lot of that in Scotland because it didn't have an allegiance with the crown of England for a long time, and there was a lot of activity, violence wise, but also when we see traumas like that, especially in the paranormal field, tends to leave imprints or basically change the frequency or waves. And maybe that's why these manifestations of imagination start to come to life when we start to see all these different things, or when we get contact from outer space, they kind of come to that place first because they can feel the reverberation and the frequency and how it's, basically like a pulse from that traumatic experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a possibility, because I mean, there's been a lot of invasions of Scotland, over the centuries. Obviously, been a lot of fighting, a lot of battles. I mean, there's a lot of witchcraft and so on. Yeah, so I mean, I can see how that can, generate, if you like, certain type of wave, a certain type of, psychic resonance. Yeah, I can see that, and I do believe it's maybe that, that is what links in. That is what is causing some kind of attraction or stimulation, or, if you like, upheavals. And I mean, certainly that is a possibility, which could explain what's been going on.
Another aspect of that too is what Rockers Los Angeles is talking about. Scotland may have crystals underground emitting energy, or maybe hidden pyramids, and there was a lot of druidic style type of history as well, between the Celts and Scotland. There was a lot of druidism, and that druidism breeds windows and opens portals and things like that, so that could definitely be.
I'll tell you one interesting thing is that Uri Geller, he bought an island off the coast of Scotland because he believed it had some contact or link to the ancient Egyptians, mentioning pyramids and stuff like that. So and supposedly Scotland was named originally after an Egyptian princess, Scotia. And I worked with a psychic for a bit who, was convinced that, there'd been a lot more contact within Egypt, ancient Egyptians, than was realized. And I think, this is a problem. A lot of, I think, history, a lot of ancient contact, ancient events, have been lost. We just do not have the kind of records, that we've had for the last, 300, 400 years. Go back thousands of years, we just don't have the sort of information. There are tantalizing clues in what archaeologists have discovered, what people have theorized, but we don't have a lot of, if you like, solid, we can't pick up, here's a book somebody's written, a report somebody's written, and say, that is exactly what went on. So it's a real possibility that we've missed a lot, which would explain what's going on today.
I totally agree with you. I've looked into a lot of different aspects of, the Phoenicians and the Egyptians talk about white men coming from the Isles, which is
Yeah,
the Isles of Ireland and Scotland,
yeah,
and essentially bringing their druidic type of style of religious style to the Middle East and to Egypt. There is a tremendous connection. And looking at some of the ancient lands of Tartaria and the stories that the Egyptians gave to the Greeks, and we see that the Irish are involved in that as well, and the Scots, and it's
yeah.
really it's really wild. I truly believe you're onto something there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Rob. Yeah, I mean, I just find all that fascinating, all those ancient links, I mean, not enough's made of it. I mean, it's kind of written out of a contemporary view of the world, except, I mean, I know a lot of people are investigating it, but for the general public, I think, a lot of this is missed out, and people don't make, they're not being allowed to make the connections between our present experiences of the paranormal and what has gone on in the past.
Well, I yes, absolutely, and I believe it's this frequency, it's this resonating frequency between that gives the entities that are on the other side of the veil the ability to speak with basically we would call them souls or spirits would be able to speak to people, especially using electromagnetic waves and the sorts of EMFs and recordings that they get. But also, if we look at contacts from a UFO, they would use similar style transmissions to inflict the radio or the television. And there is, like I said, there's so many different lines of thought that are congruent to each other. So it's really
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree. There's so much to connect up that, I mean, it's going to take a long while to get all this together. But I mean, I think people are working in it. People are beginning to make connections, and right across the world. I mean, contact's so much easier these days. People are bringing up ideas which can feed into other ideas. And so I think you can build up a better picture of what might be going on. I mean, and psychic contact and everything else. I mean, I do believe, that there are more people who've got psychic ability. They just don't realize it. And if people did realize it, we'd be in a better place to understand maybe what's going on. But I just find all that fascinating.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. So, Ron, what are you working on now? Is there something that you're working towards now?
Yeah, well, I've been working on various things. I'm trying to put together. I'm interested in all the reports of monsters in Scotland, and I mean the whole range of monsters. I mean by a monster, something non-human, and there's been such a variety over the centuries. And I'm just interested in bringing this all together, see what this means. Why do people see, say they've seen werewolves, vampires, and so on. Why is all that black? Black cats, strange, what dragons even? I mean, that whole thing. Why have people been seeing these things? And why don't people see some of those things today? I mean, people still see, for example, fairies. People still see it. Often reluctant to admit to it, but people do. And so, some things carry on, other things don't carry on. So I'm interested in that, and what is the reality of all? What does it say for our present reality? If people say they've had a vampire experience in the past, and there were reports of it, why is that not happening? Is it because people stop believing it? So what does that say about reality? Or is it still going on and people don't believe it's happening? I mean, all that kind of thing, Rob. So yeah, so I've been working on that. It's taken me a wee while. I'm a slow worker, to be honest about it, but I hope to get there eventually.
That's a lot of work, and I'm sure you have a specific or a favorite monster. What's your favorite monster doing all this work? I'm sure you have one.
My favorite monsters, the Loch monsters, because there's been a lot of activity. A Loch Ness gets all the publicity, but there are a lot of lochs in Scotland with histories of some kind of monsters, and people are still seeing them today, which again is, it's a long tradition, fascinating tradition. So I said, sorry, repeating myself here, but I mean, I was just interested in, why do people still carry on seeing loch monsters, fairies, Why don't people see vampires? Why don't they see werewolves? Yeah, it's odd.
Awesome. So, Ron, thank you so much. Why don't you let
No,
the people know where they can find you again? We've been putting it in the chat here, so let me pull it up. But let the people know where they can find your work.
yep, on Amazon. All my books are still available on Amazon.
Excellent. We've been putting it in the chat, so just wanted to say thank you again. It's been an honor and a privilege to speak with you, and we'll see you soon, Ron.
Yeah, I hope so, Rob. And thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed listening to you and to your previous speaker. I managed to catch that as well. So, yeah, been really good. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. Another amazing presenter coming through and giving us just a ton of knowledge. And I believe I'm bringing Omar in. Where is Omar? There he is. You're muted, brother. Come off of mute if you want to talk to us. Do it.
What's up, brother? That was epic, wasn't it?
Oh, it was epic, dude. I love the connections. The connections being made is like my favorite. It's one of my favorite things to go down the line and see that there is a paranormal side to it, and then the UFO side, and the avenues where, like I said, where they come together, and it's either eerily similar or the same. It gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, totally. I really resonated with the inner earth and the fairies and the dragons, and it's that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. We don't hear a lot about that, right? So it's nice to hear somebody making that connection of the inner earth and with folklore and with fairies, and right, because that's really what we're creating here, is to explore all those other ideas and not to dismiss them as as we have in the past because of our programming. So it's really nice that that connection was made, and we were able to talk about it.
I totally agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. I think that it's there's so much left out there to explore, and the fun part is that now people are coming around to the fact that there is a quantifiable, a tangible effect, and there is a realness to it,
Yeah.
and I think that's the biggest, that's one of the funnest things to explore too, is all these things, we, like you said, this folklore that we thought was myth may not be.
Mm.
It may actually be tangible. So I'll rest it there, and I will leave the stage for you, brother.
Coolest, brother. I've got a great guest coming up. It's a good friend of mine, and met him last year through our friend Neil Gore at Portal to Ascension. Allan Steinfeld does a lot of work with Portal to Ascension, and I really enjoy Allan's mind and the way he approaches questions and the way he approaches the subject, and the questions that he asks are they're very good because they're reaching into depth. And he's also the creator of New Realities and a book that he just recently published called Making Contact by Allan Steinfeld, which is available at Amazon. And I will be sharing those links here in a few minutes once we bring Allan on. Good thing we don't have Phil Gruber on, or Allan would get heckled.
Yeah, me and Phil go back a long time. But you also forgot to mention that I am broadcasting this on my YouTube channel.
I was just going to say that we are broadcasting this on a number of different platforms, and you can watch this on New Realities. In fact, all of the days that we've been doing the past 6 days are available on New Realities, and then the next 5 days will be as well, because we're going 11 days. And thank you to Allan for allowing us to stream to his channel. And thank you, Allan. And I will hand the stage over to you, my brother.
Wait, before you leave, I just want to have one little discussion with you, because
Sure.
You mentioned that if we did away with the moon, it would serve us sort of, but I think the moon was put there by aliens as an artificial creation to balance a lot of the energies on the earth, the way that pulls the tides in the ocean. Well, just think of that gravity pulling the atmosphere. So the moon is actually creating different weather patterns, and it's actually helping clean our atmosphere by this gravitational pull, which I think is substantial, because even if it's hollow, there's something in there that is dense enough to keep it in orbit around the Earth and also create a gravitational field. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like that. And that's kind of what Rob was alluding to earlier. He was saying that there could be like a machine in there of some sort that, is creating that gravitational pull, kind of like the Star Trek's beam that they grab onto something. And he was saying that it could be like that. And that's why it's orbiting, in that perfect balance, and the gravitational pull, it could be caused by that. And yeah, I totally agree. I myself don't think that the moon is a natural body, natural satellite, and it was placed there. Now, placed there by whom is the really, really big question. And I think Mike Barra really goes into that. And I enjoy his his outlook on the moon. And for me, it's a I'm going to the ancient literature as well and listening to what our ancestors are saying, and then listening to the science. It's just really, really, really confusing. But Allan, I love the mystery, right? That's why I really enjoy doing this.
Well, I do agree with you that there was a uniform temperature around the planet, but this is before the cloud condensation started to rain down. It's like we had clouds like Venus has clouds, thick cloud covering. And when it started to condense, it started to form more of the oceans. Of course, we had water on the planet, but that thick cloud covering created a uniform temperature. And I think it could have been actually Atlantean or even pre-Atlantean that some technology started to pierce the cloud covering, causing floods and more of the massive oceans, but also revealing the stars and the sun and the moon and the sky. So there's a lot of mystery, you're right, that has yet to be solved. And you can't look to mainstream to tell you what the answers are, because they will just make it up like they do it all along and say, oh yeah, this is it. It's junk DNA, or it's, there's so many things, like the Egyptian civilization only goes back 5,000 years, when it probably goes back at least 20,000. When they dated the Sphinx, John West and Robert Schoch looked for the water erosion on the Sphinx that was not caused by occasional rain, but it was caused when the Sahara desert didn't exist. It was mostly jungle there. That's why you see lions in some of the ancient Egyptian pictures, because it was much more tropical. And slowly, or maybe even overnight, the Sahara moved east to create that desert there. So Egypt, there's a lot to ancient civilizations and to the technologies of ancient civilization that we need to investigate more, and we need to bring it out to the world, because in that civilizations, there are answers that we need for the crisis in our civilization. Like I've been talking to JJ and Desiree Hertog. They just wrote a book about the batteries that were used in ancient Egypt using salt water and different metals to create electrical charge that probably illuminated some of the inner monuments. Like inside the Great Pyramid, there are no burn marks from torches. So how did they light the inside of that? There were these illumination devices that I think helped, and there's technology that can duplicate that. So if we want to know more about the future, we have to learn from the past, and see kind
of like the Baghdad battery you're talking about, that
yes,
that they discovered
the Baghdad
in Baghdad,
battery.
kind of something similar to that.
Yeah, there's definitely technology about the Baghdad battery and other batteries that were used for illumination in Egypt. And, also think of the sanitation problem they had. They used the dung beetle, which would turn, human waste into powder. And that's why it was worshipped, the dung beetle. That took care of a lot of their, sanitation needs. And, so let's look to the past to create a new future, but let's not stay in the past. We need to create a new future. That is really where we're going. And we need to uncover more of our potential, which is sort of what I'll be talking about today. So how do I share my screen on this platform?
Go to share. Now, is this your presentation? Is that on your computer, or do you have it online somewhere?
No, it's on no, it's PowerPoint on my computer.
Okay, so go
So if
to share screen.
Before I do that, I want to say if you're watching this on New Realities, subscribe to the station channel and take out a super chat and keep watching all the past shows we did this week with, you're calling this Humanity Unplugged, but this is through the Watchers, right? The Watchers.
Yeah, through Watchers Talk, Full Spectrum Universe.
Watchers Talk. I think it's an incredible job you've done, Omar, to pull this together. I mean, I know it's tireless and sometimes thankless, but thank you. I'm thanking you for it. So
thank you, Allan, and I appreciate your contribution and your participation in this too. And I appreciate that you don't say no, right? Every time I've reached out to you, you're just being very facilitating, and I truly appreciate that. Like you're literally putting your channel at risk, right? So I appreciate that.
I literally am, especially with the copy. I mean, please tell your people nothing that's been copyrighted should go on, because it's not healthy.
It's a big
for
chance
your channel.
we're taking. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
So now just tell me next time.
Go to slides up top. When you hit share screen, it says
share
slides.
Slides. Okay.
And then go to from your computer.
Okay, your computer. It says, do I have to upload a file here?
Yeah, you just click it and then it'll show you your presentation and you can upload that right into the studio.
I have to upload it though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It just can't go right from my computer onto the screen.
If you have it on the background, you can go to share screen and then go to window.
Oh, that would be better. Share screen.
Okay, yeah, go to window and then it should be in the background.
Okay. Let me just see if I can. It's just giving me Microsoft PowerPoint. Is that? No, it's not showing me that yet. So let me go share screen. Let me pull this up and let me just see. So when I share screen, sorry for the go to share screen here, slides.
Yeah. And then you'll have go to share screen and then that'll open up and then you'll have 3 tabs that says entire screen, window, and then Chrome tab. You want to choose window.
I'll choose window. Okay, share. But I'm not seeing anything that's showing up when I do window.
Do you have it open in the background?
It was.
Do you have your presentation?
This way, slides, would that be better? Your computer, upload. It's open, yeah, but I can go just from the background. Let me just see, pull this up on my PowerPoint here. How much time do I have today?
You have until 11:30, Allan. So that's just about an hour.
Okay, so let me see. I'm opening my PowerPoint here. Oh, please choose a smaller size. It's limited. So, okay, what's another?
Big.
Okay,
so
what's
just
another
go
way?
to have it open in the background.
Yes, it is open in the background.
And then go to share screen, and then to window, and then it should be able to see it in the background on the window.
Window. I see
it's right in the middle, Allan.
Okay. Do you see it on your screen? PowerPoint there?
Let's
share.
See.
It says Chrome has lost permission to capture. Follow these steps.
Screen sharing was canceled.
Follow these steps. Oh, do I have to do privacy?
Just go through the prompts that they're telling you.
Right. So I go to Chrome, screen recording. No, this article is not. So I go to security and privacy on my computer, I guess. That's right. And security and privacy. Where is that? Security, privacy. Where is the security and privacy? Oh, here, security and privacy. Okay. And then I go to privacy. Is that what it says? Oh, then I have to give permission to Chrome, I guess, to add about location. It doesn't enable location services, Chrome, accessibility. Let me just see. Oh, recording, screen recording file. Wait.
I don't think you need to go through all of that, Alan. If you just go to, I think you've gone through all the prompts. So if you go to share screen to window, it should be in the background there.
Okay. So maybe I should share screen. Okay, let me try that again. This article did not help me. Okay, let me just try this again. Sorry for the delay. I want to get right to the talk, but okay, 1 second. Let me go back to that screen. Why is it? Okay. Oh, here. Wait. Oh, there. Okay, 1 second.
Here's our buddy Liane Curtis. She wanted to heckle you a little bit.
She can come on and heckle me if she really wants to do that.
There, Alan? This is all because
what?
That damn futon.
Okay, thanks, Liane. Thanks for that. Okay, I think I got it.
Or is this stretching you enough, this tutorial here?
Require administrative password. Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to say, Liane?
Yeah. I'm watching you.
I'm watching you too. I say to Liane, she really stretches people's beliefs. Okay.
She has been stretching us lately.
She has been.
That music is safe, though, Alan. I promise. There's no programming in it whatsoever.
There's no programming in it? Okay, let me see if this works. Hey, Liane, good to see you. How's your
Hi,
mother
Alan.
doing?
She's in the other room saying, Allan, Allan. And I don't know why, because she has no idea what's going on in here. She's not, I mean, she does.
Me, yes. Okay.
She is. And, you know, she also said very randomly the other day, was it you who was asking about the blue people? So I
was I asking about the blue people?
Yeah, no, she was talking to me. So I said, yeah, I was asking what's happening with the blue people. She said, well, once this is all over, they get to go back to their planet. I said, really? She said, and they may take the moon with them. I said, oh, that's interesting. And then she went off into something else. But she definitely is plugged into something. And it's been the most fascinating experience.
But what is she plugged into is the big key there, right?
The same thing we're all plugged into. Pretty sure. Source, you know?
You know, it's still giving me saying it's too big.
Even if you have it open in the background, Alan?
Yeah, I did, I think. Okay, let me try one more time.
If not, just give us an oral download.
Fix it, Oliver.
I'll give you an oral download if this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be freaky deaky, baby.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Just go share. Chrome has lost its permission. Okay, I'm just going to give you an oral download.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Alan.
Just stay on the screen, Liane, in case you have questions, okay?
I'll text you. And then we can have ding in the background. No, I'm not doing that.
Okay. Can you show my book again, Omar? Because I just wanted to.
Sure will, Alan. Here it is. Guys, I will be sharing the link.
Sorry for the delay. I didn't know we had to upload it separately. But so this book is not my understanding of making contact. It is a collection of essays by some of the greatest minds in the field, like Whitley Strieber, Linda Moulton Howe, Grant Cameron, JJ and Desiree Hurtak, and they've all come together to understand this phenomenon from many, many different angles, because nobody has the whole truth. This is why the government is so reluctant to share with us what's really going on. So I put together that book, which tells the story of what that is, what is out there, who knows what's really out there. No one really understands the phenomena. And we need to find a deeper part of ourselves if we're really going to understand it. We need to put together a lot of the different pieces of the puzzle here, because no one's going to tell us what's really going on. So I introduced my book with this prologue about what I think the future of humanity can hold and where we're going as a civilization. And this is from a quote that was hanging on my wall for, I don't know, 10 years, because when I found it, I said, I need to be reminded of this. I need to put this somewhere where other people can read about it. And this was written by an abolitionist when there was this whole anti-slavery campaign in the US, and that's led to the Civil War. And there was a lot of movements for, the freedom of people, even though there's still a long way to go for the planet about freedom. That was one avenue that started for at least maybe this country, if you believe some of that, what you hear. But anyway, in the prologue by this guy, William Ellery Janning, he says, there are seasons in human affairs of inward and outward revolution, when new depths seem to be broken up in the soul, and when new wants are unfolded in multitudes. I think that's what you're doing here, Omar. You're helping people expand. Okay. And he also goes on to say, there are periods when the principles of experience need to be modified, which is what the UFOs are doing, and when hope and trust and instinct claim a share in the guidance of affairs, and when in truth, to dare is the highest wisdom. So we are going to the borders of what we thought was possible previously, what we thought was what we thought were the limits of consciousness. We're realizing, of course, that there are no limits. Of course, we're trapped, in a sense, if we choose to be, by our past. And this is another quote, if I was able to show it to you, and it's by H.G. Wells, the guy who wrote the first book about alien contact. In a way, it wasn't such a great book, but that War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. But later on in his career, he started to realize that maybe this wasn't all a negative response. Of course, there are positive and negative ETs out there, but as far as civilization, H.G. Wells says, civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. Let us learn the truth and spread it far and wide as our circumstances allowed for. Truth is the greatest weapon we have. So what is the truth? What are we talking about? What's really out there? Some people, I wrote this book with a collection of people about maybe ETs, but maybe they're not ETs. Maybe there's another level, I love this quote, too bad you can't see it, by Terence McKenna, where he says that maybe we're part of a symbiotic relationship with something that disguises itself as extraterrestrial as to not to really freak us out. So what we're calling extraterrestrial or ETs or UFOs is just a name. It's a name for something we have yet to understand. So when we call something unidentified, we think we're identifying it by calling it unidentified. And it's really not. We're trying to categorize the unknown in the language that we understand. And the unknown has no categories of understanding. It is uncategorizable until we evolve to a place where we can move out of the old categories of what we've known and create, let's say, new categories of understanding, new categories of structural belief. But it's not just about belief, it's about knowing. There's belief, there's thinking, and there's knowing. So do you believe you're watching this? Do you think you're watching this, or do you know? Knowing is a direct communication of mind to awareness. Thinking and believing believing is really nothing. Believing is only conjecture. Do you believe this? Do you believe that? You can believe anything you want. I call that make-believe. You can make yourself believe anything you want or be programmed to believe it. Belief is a kind of overlay of someone else's ideas about the nature of reality. So don't believe anything. And then there's thinking. You could think about things, which is great. We're here as thinking beings, but a lot of thought it's sort of related to what that woman said yesterday about the archons. A lot of thought, thinking is trapped inside a cyclical sense of worry. You're mostly thinking about, oh, should you do that, this. Real thought is unlimited. Real thought takes us into unknown possibilities. So there's thinking and there's thought in a way, but knowing, or what the Greeks called gnosis, is direct understanding. Understanding is not really the right word. Direct communication of mind or consciousness to phenomena. So we want to come to a place of knowing, and that's the key. So we need to transform on 10 levels. This is what I've mapped out, and too bad you can't see the PowerPoint, but I've mapped out 10 levels of knowing, and these knowing areas are being awakened by what was been called the UFO phenomena, whatever it is that's out there. I mean, UFOs don't really say anything. Are we being visited by aliens? Maybe. Are they always been here? Are they us? All those things are possible. It's whatever you believe, but maybe there's something outside belief that we have yet to know. And that's where I'm going. So when we transcend belief, we come back to knowing. And what do we know and what do we not know? That's the way to restructure the nature of reality as we perceive it. So perceptions are based on what we know. They're based on experience. They're based on what we know about that experience. And perceptions can be based on belief, but that's a distortion. And they can be based on programmed thought, but that's also a sort of, it's in the way of knowing. So on 10 different levels of transformation that we need to come into if we're really going to know the phenomena and what's out there and who we are, I think it's first, biological in a sense. It's biological, transcends knowing because it's more instinctual, but it is a biological transformation that we are going through. We're upgrading our DNA. We have to, and that's one level. The next level is psychological. Psychological is how we're going to integrate the perceptual values of what this next level of awakening, does to our understanding of who we are. That's the psychological. And that's why a lot of people are freaked out by contact, the abduction phenomenon. I think people are freaked out by abductions because there's no preparation psychologically for it. So what my book subtitle is, Preparing for the New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence, is a psychological preparation for meeting the others. Of course, there's starseeds and all these people who have come from other realms, and they have prepared somewhat humanity for this next level. But each of us have to prepare our own psychology for when, let's say you're in your bed in the middle of the night, the doors are locked, and something shows up at the foot of your bed. Are you going to freak out? Are you going to go to another level of awareness and meet the beings on a kind of mental interface? Or are you going to let yourself be overpowered by that vibrational frequency of those other beings? So preparation has to be, vibrational and psychological and intellectual. These are the levels that we have to change or upgrade, let's say. I mean, change is always happening, but how do we upgrade to those different ways of embracing an unknown phenomena? Well, it does come down to vibrational. So we have to do things that will increase our vibrational field. I think we have to eat clean diets. I think we have to drink pure water. We have to breathe fresh air. We have to be around people that are uplifting. There's a lot of people who like to complain about their lives or the world or, war. And, it's great to take notice of that. But, Marshall Rosenberg in his Nonviolent Communication said, instead of complaining, think about how to make life more wonderful. So if you think about how to make life more wonderful, because it already is pretty amazing, then there's an increase in vibrational frequency on all levels. If you're looking for the wonder, if you're looking for that movement towards a higher field of vibration, you have to do that from the inside out. Making contact is making contact with the energetic forces that run your your body, mind, and spirit. You know, the spirit is always pretty evolved, but it's pulling us to the next level. But unless you're prepared for that, unless you're increasing the vibrational field by lots of other things, you know, doing exercise, yoga, you know, reading, stimulating books, listening to great lectures, listening to what's been presented here for the last few days. That's all an increase in your vibrational field, because you have to take this new information into the embodiment. And when you do, there's a shift. It has to make room for embracing new knowledge, but also helping other people, having integrity, listening to your intuition. These are all aspects of vibrational increase. Going to power spots is another place where you can feel the earth, you can feel that connection, and you can feel the cellular vibration. And when you feel that, then the endocrine gland system, the pineal pituitary system, starts to expand, and you start to have greater levels of thought and thinking. So that's another aspect. And so that's the fourth level. The fifth level of transformation that we need to go through is cultural. So it's not just on the individual. Those first four were just your individual. Then it becomes collective. How is the society? How is the groups? How is the countries and the planet dealing with this influx of new realities from these beings that are coming here? Are we ready for disclosure? Are we pushing for disclosure? Are we making room within our cultural sphere about other levels of reality? So that's a cultural level. And then it's planetary. So, you know, the planetary matrix is something that's been overshadowed with a grid that has kept us limited in different ways of thinking. So there's the planetary matrix, there's the solar plane matrix, there's the galactic matrix, there's the local universe, and there's the multi-universe matrix, which has stopped the expansion of thought, you know, from 3D to 4D reality. So I'm just running through this a little fast, just so I try to get all these concepts in. 3D reality, that's the physical body. That's the senses. That's the five senses, you know. It's hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, tasting. That's our groundedness in 3D reality. Of course, that's not the limited senses, and I'll get to that. The fourth dimension really is, and people say it's time, but I think it's emotion, our emotional realities. Like, are you angry? Are you sad? Are you happy? That's really where people live. They don't live so much in their bodies. They live in their emotional realities. So there's a lot of stuff could be going on physically around them, but all they're concerned about is, did someone say this to me? What am I going to do? How am I going to talk to that person? So the emotional realities is the field we live in. We live in those. That's where the human being, the human mind generally lives. It's in that very limited, and it's more like astral in a way. You know, people get stuck in the astral levels. They're stuck in their emotional body that has not gone on to evolve to greater levels. They haven't transcended the emotional matrix or the cultural matrix that kept us limited, you know, and the whole programming of the fourth dimensional emotional matrix is to work, buy, consume, and that's it. That's basically it. You know, you were very limited by the cultural matrix that just leads us to very limited choices in the world. Have a family, have relationships, keep yourself happy, you know, have enough money, hopefully, and that's it. That is all. That's what's been laid out for us in this very limited world, until you go and transform to the next level of this reality. And that is really what people have been calling 5D, the fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it. And that's been initiated a lot by certain experiences that also shift the vibration. People with near-death experience, people who have had out-of-body experience, astral projection, past life memory can trigger this fifth dimensional awareness. Even seeing a UFO, once you see something in the sky that's unexplainable, whatever that may be, you move out of the limited mind and the limited way of being stuck in this cycle of repetition and karmic limitation to the next level. Something is with Grant Cameron in my book, Making Contact, says if you've seen a UFO, it has seen you, and you are entangled in that field. You are connected. You're connected to a phenomena that's bigger than yourself. And whether they're positive or negative, you are now awakened to something. So if you see something, believe what you've seen. Trust what you've seen, because there's a huge increase in sightings and I think visitations that are happening here on this planet. The next way of shifting to a fifth dimensional understanding is just having a telepathic communication, have a telepathic conversation with someone, talk to them psychically. And, if someone is ringing on your phone, don't look at who's calling. See if you can get the impression of who that energy is that is calling you. Also, remote viewing. I teach remote viewing classes on Portal to Ascension, and we talk about activating the remote viewing aspect of the non-local mind, meaning that we think our minds are part of the brain, and it's generating thought, and the thought has memory, and we're sending this memory or thoughts or ideas out there. But the brain, in my understanding, is really a receiver. It's a sender and receiver of higher consciousness. It's like a radio. If you open the radio, you're not going to find an announcer or musicians in there. The radio is a receiver, and it can be a sender. So that's what the brain, the hardware is the brains, the physical brain. The software is the personality, but you can have hardware and software, but it doesn't go anywhere. Let's say your computer, it's hardware and it has these software programs, but it just sits there until you have one thing, and that's the operator. The operator is consciousness itself. So without consciousness, it doesn't matter what kind of hardware and software you have. Without the operator, it doesn't go anywhere. So the operator, the consciousness, is the universal agent. It's the true nature of who we really are. It is a non-local awareness that transcends time and space. So when you become familiar with the understanding that you're not your body, you're not your mind, even you're not your personality, and you have those things and they're great, but who you are is made up of the consciousness field, then you start to awaken to a fifth dimensional understanding of new realities. That's what I'm calling new realities. So the evolutionary cycle really goes from the personal to the cultural to, let's say, the interdimensional. So we need to start from the person here, and we start to get involved with a group of people or a collective, or being unplugged from the old humanity. And that starts to influence a cultural meme or a cultural vibrational field. Of course, we're talking about fields of energy that start to shift the whole planetary matrix, the whole human unpluggedness into the next level of interdimensional awareness. And it's only by having an interdimensional awareness that we'll be able to really make contact with these other beings, because they're not, in my understanding, they're not of this 3D reality. They come in and out of the 3D, even 4D realm, the emotional realm, but they're not in this realm. They're not of this realm. They may visit, but so in order for us to meet the others on a higher level, on the level that they exist on, which is why I think we're getting so much UFO activity, because we're being pulled, for those that want to be, to the next realm of awakening. We're being pulled there. So my favorite quote along these lines is by John Mack. And too bad you can't see this picture of me and John Mack out for coffee from like 1995. He was the Harvard psychiatrist, head of the psychiatric program at Harvard University, who started to talk to people who have had contact in the early 90s. He wrote a book called Abductions, and he validated people's experience and said to these people, no, you're not crazy. You're having a real interchange with a phenomena that's unexplainable. So John Mack says from his book Abductions, and he also wrote a chapter in my book Making Contact that you can see there in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Even though he died about 2001, there was a unpublished article that he had transcribed that was never in print. So I asked permission from his archivist and his family to print this article by John Mack, which is titled Making Contact with the Subtle Realms. So he says, probably in my book and in Abductions, we're dealing with a phenomena which violates our sense of reality. That means 3D limited reality, which operates in the area between the physical objective world and the subjective experience. And we're being asked to prove the existence of this by physical science alone, by what I'm commenting, the old Newtonian science. But those methods, in my opinion, John Mack's opinion, will not yield its secrets until we discover other ways of knowing. Other ways of knowing means we have to understand the phenomena on not a linear Newtonian left brain awareness. So this is not a left brain phenomenon. Left brain will only get you from A to B. The right brain is your intuition, it's your creativity, it's your understanding of the gnosis. It's the understanding of what we really are. So there's this great slide I have up on my screen. Too bad we can't see it, but if you could, it would show a little kid walking along with this like bubble over his head that says ABC 1, 2, 3. That's the left brain, and the right brain is this mass of color and design and shape, and that's the right brain intuition of our potential. But we need to be whole brain beings. We need to open up the full spectrum of what's possible. Part of what was shutting down the matrix of human thought was just being logical, just being left brain, just following the rules, following the what you're supposed to do, what you've been told to do, following instructions. All that is very left brain and logic, and it doesn't include the intuitive, creative aspect. So we need to be whole brain understanding. And Tesla said, I love quoting Tesla said, he says, if the genius of invention was to reveal tomorrow the secrets of immortality, the eternal beauty and youth of which human beings are always wanting, what would prevent that from happening is the resistance to new knowledge, because we're very attached to what we think we know, not what we don't know. And I'm going to go through some examples of this. So, and then we'll open up into how we can expand into the unknown. So there, John Locke, the English philosopher, writes about how this ambassador from Holland went to Thailand, called Siam, back in his day. And he said to this king of Siam, he said, the water in my country gets so cold that an elephant could walk upon it. And the king, just by what his culture allowed him to understand and believe, said, no, that's impossible. I've heard you talk about many strange things from your culture, but now I know you're lying, because an elephant cannot walk across water. And that was just the way we are all limited by what we know, by the understanding of our cultural background. it doesn't let us believe something or know even something that is outside our worldview. So we have to keep stretching. So if someone sees something and you don't believe it, doesn't mean it's not true. If someone says, throws out a great idea and it doesn't make sense, that's great, because not making sense is how we expand into integrating the greater reality, the new realities. There's also this quote that was said to Galileo when he pointed the telescope at the sky. A telescope was not invented to look at the stars. It was originally called a spyglass. Armies would use it to see what was happening in the distance, so they'd see when people were coming. But Galileo, the genius of Galileo, was point the telescope at the sky. And the church comes along and says, we don't like you doing that. We know what's up there. And plus, that's God's bedroom, and he doesn't like you looking in on him. And then there was someone else from the church. And there's nothing wrong with, whatever you want to believe. But these people back in the 1600s, that was 1615, said, when Galileo said, the earth revolves around the sun, he said, that's as erroneous as to think that Jesus was not born of a virgin. And well, people can believe whatever they want, and maybe Jesus was, but it just talks about the limitation. Another way we can look at limitations, when Robert Fulton, who invented the steam engine, went to Napoleon and said, I can make your ship sail against the winds and the currents, and by just lighting a fire underneath the deck. And Napoleon said, excuse me, I have no time to listen to such nonsense. So this goes on and on through human history. And when the railroads were created in 1829, the president at the time, Martin Van Buren, said, railroads that carry women and children at such breakneck speeds as 15 miles per hour are scaring people and livestock. And the Almighty certainly never intended people to travel at such speed. So, we're always limited by what we know, but we're also limited by what we know about ourselves. There's this cartoon here that I'm showing. Maybe there is a way to show them, where this guy is at a bar and he's sort of drunk and he's yelling at the bartender saying, hey, pal, you have no idea who I think I am. So your history, your understanding, your thoughts about yourselves, what you think your history is also another level of limitation about the expansion of consciousness. So what do we believe? What do we know? If we go back to UFOs, it is not about belief. It is about understanding. It's about opening up our minds to new possibilities. So there's this other quote I often show in my PowerPoint about the 1903 article in Scientific America, who said the Wright brothers are hoaxers. They're hoaxers because they said they can fly a heavier than air machine, off the ground. And it was proven just that same year by a guy named Simon Newcomb that it was impossible to fly a heavier than air machine through the air. And so the Scientific America said the Wright brothers must be hoaxers, until Theodore Roosevelt said, no, we're going to do tests and see if they can fly. And they were able to fly and defy what the science of the time was telling them was possible. So what is the science of our times telling us is possible? Well, that's where a lot of people like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, no, it's impossible for UFOs to fly here from another planet. And people are limited by their belief system. So what I show here in this PowerPoint is that we need what John Mack said, other ways of knowing. And the main principal way of other ways of knowing is quantum physics. Quantum physics is the key to understanding new realities. It really is. And we need to think along quantum physical terms in order to understand how this phenomena is actually moving interdimensionally. Of course, I want to just quote Richard Feynman says, if you think you understand quantum physics, you probably don't, because it supersedes the understanding from the old paradigm. But some of the principles of quantum physics are uncertainty, means that you can't pinpoint the exact location of anything in time, particularly electrons around an atom, because as soon as you pinpoint it, you're stopping the movement, and you're no longer looking at an atom, you're looking at an isolated part of the atom. It's like, how do you measure the current of a river by taking out a bucket of water? You can't do it because you no longer have the river. So really, reality is a wave, not a particle. Everything is turning into everything else, and there is no exact position of anything. Everything is in superposition. And I think this is how the UFOs, or whatever they are, move through time and space, by not collapsing the wave function. So collapsing the wave function is measuring the electron where it is, and you say, oh, this is it, and it becomes a particle, but it's never been a particle, because its actual function is to move in the wave. So when you collapse a wave function, you think you know what it is by naming something, and when you name it, it's not it. The Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. This is what the Chinese say. There is no, what we're naming things is not actually what the thing is. It's only a label for what these things are. So if you see a picture of an apple, is that an apple? No. This is what Rene Magritte, when he did this painting called Of a Pipe, that said, this is not a pipe, because you're not seeing a pipe, you're seeing a representation of paint on a canvas that looks like something you know, which is a pipe or an apple. But that's not what it is. Even when you see an apple right in front of you, you can call it that, but in a sense, you're also limiting it, because if you think you know what it is, you're not really experiencing the thing. If you stand in front of a tree and you're calling it a tree, you're not really being with that entity of what you're seeing. When you put labels on things, and we need labels, the left brain needs labels in order to identify things, but that's not what things are. That's what Joseph Chilton Pearce calls a semantic reality. And people live in this world of labels and things and self-identity, but that's not what's really going on. What's really here is unlimited possibilities. This is what the quantum function is saying. Another aspect of the quantum function is entanglement. If you're connecting with somebody, your minds are entangled. The energetic field of your mind are intersecting with each other. So entanglement, and the more time you spend with someone, the more entangled you are on the quantum wave function level with that person. So let's say you grow your brothers and sisters. Somehow your minds are entangled together. You can feel what they're feeling. And like I said about seeing these ships in the sky, that greater mind, because they do have a greater mind, they may not have a greater consciousness, but that mind is entangled with our mind. And as Grant Cameron says, you're part of the phenomena. If you've seen something that you can't explain, you're part of it. Actually, Nietzsche said, if you gaze into the abyss gazes back at you. So that's sort of some of the principles of quantum physics that I think apply to how the functioning of these UFOs operate in and out of our three-dimensional world. By staying into superposition, they can move in and out of our reality, because maybe they were never actually in our reality or appearing in our reality, or appearing in the time space that we've identified, because it's really part of the programming of our mind. So they're really playing with our minds in a sense. So consciousness is key in understanding quantum physics, is understanding making contact, it's understanding who we are as unlimited beings, not personality, bodies, or identification of what we've done, our history. So what is consciousness? I'll quote Max Planck, who really was the father of quantum physics. And he says, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter, including time and space, as derivative of consciousness. It's not something we can get behind. Everything we talk about, everything we regard as existing, is postulated by consciousness. So people say, well, what is consciousness? It is, in a sense, undefinable, but it's beyond thought. It is existence itself, because nothing would exist unless there was this consciousness that led to existence. So we're connected to a vast consciousness, as a fractal of that. Robert Spira, who teaches non-duality, said, the materialistic point of view that asserts that the existence of realities outside of consciousness is a fabrication, because no one has been able to experience anything outside of consciousness. So is there an objective world out there? Well, who's to say? Because there's no objective mind, and to see what's outside of their mind. So there is no real objective world. This is the fundamental nature of consciousness. I think this is where Einstein's theory of relativity came in and sort of was such a shock to the old Newtonian science that said, no, there is objectivity out there in the world. Einstein said, no, everything is relative to where you are, the speed of light, the pictures of reality is relative to where you are standing. He didn't quite use the term consciousness, but it's relative to who you are. So who you, all, me, all of us are, is an aspect of conscious awareness trying to understand itself in existence. But it's not about understanding. Consciousness is about gnosis. It's about a direct knowing. So really, this is what the great philosophers were understanding, the Gnostic principles of awareness, of knowing, of pure being. Pure being is gnosis. When you're just present, that is the embodiment of consciousness. I think, this is my understanding. John Wheeler, who was another leader in the field of quantum physics and understanding, he wrote a book called The Participatory Universe, where he says, we are not simply bystanders on a cosmic stage. We are the shapers and creators of a living participatory universe, meaning the universe would not exist without you, because it would exist for other people maybe, but it wouldn't exist without you for you. It would exist, for or not. All we know is what we know, and we have to stay open to what we don't know, so we can increase our awareness, so we can start to merge with the gnosis of the greater existence. So another example I use is something Donald Hoffman says, who talks about how time and space are really just mental fabrications. And we can agree upon time and space because we live within a cultural matrix that says, okay, it's 1 hour, 60 seconds, or, there's agreements that have been programmed into our cultural matrix about the time space understanding. But Hoffman says, it seems that levels of consciousness shape the results of our observations. So you could be looking at an apple, but someone could see a whole energetic being. You could be looking at someone, you could be seeing auric fields. You could be seeing an infinite amount of things that are like an insect with their multiple eyes. They see lots of levels that we're not seeing. So I like to quote Alex Huxley, who says, if things were known, really, I'll quote, this is really a quote from Marcel Proust, who said, the voyage of discovery is not in finding new things, but it's in having new eyes to see the reality of what those things are. So what does that come down to? It comes down to hacking reality. So how do we hack reality? Well, let's say you have a website. And this is on the screen here. You can't change what's on the website until you go get the password and go into the HTML coding, and then you can change what you see on the screen. So you have to go into the coding to change reality. So how do you change what's out there? By going in and changing the coding or the belief system or the perceptions of the world, and then you start to see a different screen out there in the world. Bashar says, if the world is a reflection of your awareness. So if you're looking in the mirror and the guy in the mirror is not smiling, you don't go up to the mirror and try to make that guy smile. The smile or the awareness comes from an internal projection that then is reflected in your outer world. So that's the key to changing realities, by looking at your belief systems, looking at your programming, looking at what's stuck, looking at the dramas that are around you, looking at what's coming up for you, and then reprogramming your mind to make a difference in your own internal affairs. Let's call it that way. I'll quote Jeffrey Kripal in the book Supernatural. He says, it's time to tell a better story about the whole pantheon of the unknown, the gods, the miracles, the angels, the aliens, and all the mysteries in the sky. We need new categories of awareness. We need to tell a new story about who we are, about what's happening. There's this great quote by William Blake. He said, if the doors of perception were cleansed, we would see things as they are, which are infinite. But we've been closed up by ourselves and by our programming to see the world through just this narrow little crack in reality, in the world. But we're not seeing the big picture. What UFOs or whatever these beings are, they're trying to open our minds to a bigger picture of what's possible. You know, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg, and the great mystics of our time, the people who have been more creative, the people who are tapped into more of an internal knowing, that are able to communicate it outside. The great artists of the world are able to show us what's really there, or as opposed to what our limited understanding of what's there. So this again goes just back to some of the basic understanding of the quantum physics, which is really something we don't, if we understood how to operate under the laws of quantum physics, we'd be able to do what we see these UFOs do, disappear in and out, to have connections with people instantly, to actually shift reality, to come in and out of dreams. If we understood the principles of entanglement, to understand that there's a wave particle duality, to understand the observer effect, the observer affects reality. And when you collapse the wave function into thinking this is what it is, you're losing the connection to the greater mind. There's only really the greater level of mind is abstract thinking, not concrete thinking, not seeing things just as they are. It's okay to see things how they are, but also see the greater cluster of meaning. This is what abstract thinking is. It's a cluster of meaning. That's what an emoji does. It's not telling you this is what yes or no, like a thumbs up just doesn't mean yes or no. It means a multiple levels of awareness and things. So new levels of cognition can only emerge at new levels of awareness. We need to have a greater understanding of who we are and higher cognitive functions. And that opens us up to other levels, and then we'll be able to. Someone just said hello there. Able to understand the true nature of reality by apprehension versus comprehension. Abstraction is being able to apprehend levels of reality, not comprehended. Comprehension, in the sense, is left brain thinking and collapses the wave function into a thing to make it happen. So getting back to the book I wrote, if you look at that, can you put that up on the screen one more time? Omar, did I lose you? Here. I just want to show people. So this all makes sense to me. If you look at this little asterisk inside between making and contact, that is a symbol. And what is a symbol of? I'm trying to tell people how I think these ETs think. They don't think in words. They're not communicating in words. They're communicating in symbols. So this asterisk actually means little star, but it's also a marking point. It's a point of contact. For me, this symbolic notation in the title is the point of making contact. It's how we understand the greater reality with abstract thought, symbolic nature, and not thinking in words, but thinking in more of an artistic way of interpreting reality. So what's the point of making contact? The point of making contact is expanding the knowledge of who we are as human beings, expanding the place of being our own true divine self. So the point of making contact really is to increase our creativity, imagination. This is the evolutionary impulse in us. Art, creativity, imagination. That is why we incarnated here on Earth. This is what's really hardwired into us. And this is what's the matrix of limitation has stopped us from dealing with, intersecting with our true intuitive artistic nature. So this is what we have to kind of open up to and understand the unlimited aspect of the human being. And when we can do that, we start to increase the vibrational field around us. We start to accelerate the cellular structure. We start to expand our mind. We start to leave the old limitations behind and awaken to the next level of existence. So, Omar, I think...
Did you want to take some questions, Allan?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I will, let's go with this one here. Question, Seeking Heaven says, what does a holographic universe mean to Allan? And does he feel our life experiences are tailored to our awareness level?
Well, your life experiences are particularly tailored to your awareness level, but if you increase your awareness level, you have different experiences. I think holographic, yes, the universe is a hologram. It is it's a more holistic way of looking at things. We need to look at the holographic nature of existence and the universe. Each part contains the whole. So each of us are a fractal of the whole nature of existence. That's part of the hologram. Every piece of existence contains the whole of existence. That's the quantum thinking that we need to come to if we're going to expand the possibility of the of this existence that we're here in.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a question from New Realities from Pono888. Says, when consciousness traverses multiverse in sequence with, we have no idea consciousness is as free as electromagnetic resonances.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I understand.
I'm not understanding the...
Well, let me look at it on my New Realities.
Yeah.
Let me look at
it.
What another question to go to while we're looking at that?
Yeah, for sure. Let's hit. Actually, I wanted to ask you the relationship between local and non-local communication with ET, right? So we know that our consciousness is, our brain is a receiver and a transmitter. So when we have these, contacts of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth kind, right? What are we dealing with there? Because when you look at something and it's beginning to communicate with you, would that be like local contact, or would that be like non-local contact?
Well, it's the difference between like talking to you, I'm talking to you, that's local, or I could get a telepathic message from you, then that doesn't have to be local. You know, some people who are star seeds communicating with other beings, their beings don't necessarily have to be in a ship. They could be anywhere in the cosmos. It's just how I think seeing a UFO or making that associations helps open our mind a little bit more to contact. But when we really become universal cosmic beings, that is just open. When we really understand how our brains operate, that it's not a local phenomena, just like you can pick up the same radio station wherever you are. It's like, how open are we to receiving? And that becomes, everything becomes non-local. I'm talking to you now locally, but if we were really practice, we'd be able to just communicate. We wouldn't even have to look at each other, and we'd just be able to distinguish the frequencies. Everybody's communicating on their own frequency, their own bandwidth. We just have to tune into the bandwidth and pick it up, and that's how channeling happens. They tune into a bandwidth, and those beings come through, and those beings aren't necessarily even in this dimension. So the brain as a receiver is an incredible instrument, and we don't even know how to operate it. So that's the next level of our evolution,
Yeah, I like that, because it's like what you were saying earlier with the telephone call. When your phone rings, don't answer it, don't look at it, try to focus in on who's calling. So that's kind of the same thing that you're saying here with the non-local and local, right? Where we can go inwards and then begin to focus, and then that bandwidth or that frequency, once we're vibrating at a particular level, will just expose itself, and then we can connect to it like a TV channel or a radio station or whatever, and then we can begin to transmit and receive between the two.
Right. It's like your telephone's picking, if it's not on, you're still getting messages, right? It's still you're receiving it, but you're not actively engaged. When you turn it on, you're downloading. So when we actively open our brains, I think this is what or our minds or our capabilities, we can start to receive this higher than consciousness thinking.
Here's a good question for you, Allan. It's about your book, and it's from our friend Kathy Mason. And I wondered about that too. How did you select the people to include in your book? Because just so many people. So how did you choose like these few particular people?
That's a really good question. That's something I thought about. So I went to this publisher. We developed this idea, and I've been going to conferences, I would say, for 30 years, UFO conferences. So I resonate with the people who I feel have done the most research, who are really totally involved, who are dedicated to understanding the phenomena, but each of them have their own specific take. So and there's 12 different essays in there, including my own, but I look for people I consider the top of the field. This is just my category. So we get Nick Pope leading it off because he worked for the Ministry of Defense, and he just talked about hardware, government cover-up. That was the first level, but I think he was great. And second chapter is Grant Cameron, who's also, I feel, able to put the whole phenomena into perspective. So these are people I thought were top of the field. Whitley Strieber talking about abductions, John Mack talking about his dealing with people, Linda Moulton Howe talking about her 40 years of research. So I looked for the best in the field and put them all together in their personal essay in this book. Mary Rodwell is talking about her starseed conversations with these young children who are just waking up to who they really are. So, and then Carolyn Corey, who I think is one of the most integrated people with these ETs on the planet. And then Darrell Anka wrote an original essay about his 30-year relationship with Bashar. So I go from the external, the nuts and bolts, and then Grant Cameron talking about the phenomenon, and then John Mack and Whitley Strieber talking about the interface, and then I talk about my own experience, and then we go into the the actual meeting of these beings with Mary Rodwell and Daryl Anka and Carolyn Corey, and how we integrate it. So we go from the exo to the esoteric, from the to the all levels of phenomena. So it's a really great primer. Like, people involved in this field, they probably know a lot of what's going on here. But if you, the only one in your family says, you know what, there's other beings, there's other things out there, this is the book to give them, to help them sort of understand. And like the subtitle says, preparing for the new realities of extraterrestrial existence. My next book goes deeper into the phenomenon, what it means to actually change your paradigm. But yeah, this is, you get this book on Amazon. You put the Amazon link there. You get it at Barnes & Noble. It's St. Martin's Press, St. Martin's Essentials. And it is, I think, one of the best collections of essays around, not because I put it together, because they really lay out the phenomenon from so many different perspectives that, you see, because no one has the whole truth. That's, like I said before, the government's not telling us because they don't really know. They have a little piece. They might have more than others, but to make sense of the phenomena, it's a subjective reality. Each of us have to make sense of it for ourselves. How do we integrate this into our own worldview? Because I think we're going to get more and more revelations as we get closer to public disclosure. We're going to understand the phenomena in ways that aren't apparent to us. But we have to understand, like I was saying, abstract language. How to think. Like, if you're talking to your dog, you're not going to bark at it, right? You're talking. That's what I'm saying. They're talking to us in the language of a more advanced intelligence. That doesn't mean they're greater than us. It does mean they probably have a greater technology. So, and the language, from what I've been able to understand, what John Mack suggested, is another way of knowing reality that's much more abstract. It's the difference between apprehension versus comprehension. When you comprehend something, which is nothing wrong with it, you collapse the wave function and say, this is a computer. When you apprehend it, you start to think more symbolically, more in a cluster of meanings, more associative, more as a wave. And so this is sort of the level of symbolic interaction these beings are having with us. And that's my conclusion at this point. It might change, as there is something out there that is trying to communicate with us. We just have to get out of the density that we've been locked into in order to meet the others on an even playing field. That includes being lucid in your dreams, thinking more creatively, intuitively. And then we start to open the field and start to trust your own knowing. I think you said that to me yesterday, Omar. Trust your own knowing.
Yep. Trust your own knowing, my man. Just follow your gut and follow your instinct, your intuition, because they'll never steer you wrong, right? That's your higher self really talking and communicating with you, and you really have to listen to that.
Yeah. So thank you for this. I'm sorry we missed the PowerPoint, because you get so much more with the visuals. Next time, Stonehoppet said, change your phonics. Yeah, change your voice, change your inflection, change your frequency. I'm sort of monotone, but we change the vibrational frequency of our voice. We start to change the vibrational frequency of our bodies, and we take in more light. And so thank you, blessed by the best. You are blessed by the best. That's a great name. And that's just a little bit of what I'm trying to discover, to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because we don't have the sense to make of this thing at this moment in our evolution. But that's why what you're doing, and Neil, and what I'm doing, is to put out these possibilities to start making sense, stop making sense, all that. Thanks, Omar, for the
beautiful.
And let's do more discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. I love these types of conversations because they really help us expand our vision, our mind, helps to throw ideas out there, brainstorm, and try to really wrap our head around what's really going on, because we've been misled our entire lives, and it's really is up to us now to try to discern what's been going on. And it's only through dialogue and gatherings and communication that we can really begin to go under this whole subject and begin to understand who we're being contacted by for what reason, for how long, what's the purpose, what's in the future, what have they done in the past, have they tinkered with us, things like that. We really need to explore that so we can understand ourselves, because the more we understand ourselves, the greater our future will be, the better timeline that we can create. But if we have fog and just there's no memory of what's happened in the past, then we're doomed to continue to make those mistakes in the future. So it's very important that we talk about these kinds of things. And I appreciate your contribution to Humanity Unplugged, Allan. Truly, I do.
Well, thank you. The reason we have no memory is partly the limited thought matrix that have been put on our own creative activities, and we're freeing ourselves from this to think unlimited thoughts. So if you have an unlimited thought, write it down, don't write it off, integrate it, tell someone, share it, because we're accessing the greater mind here, and it's always been available. That's why, inventors who come up with a new idea, most of it's laughed at, but then occasionally you get somebody who's saying, no, there is such things as anti-gravity, as time travel, as teleportation. These are not just,
Star Trek ideas.
These are things that are possible, that are happening in dimensions that are much more free than our own. But we're evolving. We're finally saying no. So let's start saying war, no to hunger, no to no. And I think we have to stand up as a unified force to change the vibration that we're functioning as a planetary species. So we're not ready to meet the others until we're ready to meet each other. That's really some of the subtext of the book here. So
yeah, and that is so true. How can we you're totally right, Allan. We can't hope to connect with ET when our own backyard is dirty and nasty. We have to address our own social issues, personal issues, societal issues, and then once we have all of that taken care of, and then the universe and consciousness and everything that's involved will just make it happen, right? It'd be just a part of how things really are. So thank you very much, Allan. I totally appreciate your contribution. Guys, subscribe to Allan's channel, New Realities. It's an epic channel. It's been around a long time. It's a huge channel. I watch it lots.
Let me see this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. But subscribe to New Realities. Take out a super chat. I want to get to 100,000. I have 75,000 subscribers right now. It'd be great to get to 100,000. Thank you. Can we bring Liane on? I want to say hello.
Sure, we'll bring Liane on. Where is she at? There she is.
Liane, unmute so we can hear all your comments. Unmute yourself, Liane.
I was saying that I had my glasses on so that I could look extra smart for you.
You don't need glasses for that, hon.
Yeah. What are you going to do for us today, Liane?
What have I done today so far?
What are you going to do now?
What am I going to do now? Well, why don't you hang out and find out, Allan, and why don't you do it with me?
I love doing it with you. Okay, sure.
I know you do, Allan.
The way she said it was super aggressive, so I would have said no too. It was like, yeah, I don't know. It's
sure that one.
It's like that.
I love your counterpoint to Rob Omar. Like, that's a really good kind of interaction there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we're going to do a stretch now. Allan, before I let you go, once again, please tell our audience where they can get your book, whether it's available in Kindle, paperback, hardback that they want to order. Maybe they can order all three to have it as a keepsake on their bookshelf that they can read and share with friends and kind of what have you.
Definitely. It is actually doing pretty well in the marketplace. It's on Amazon, Making Contact by Alan Steinfeld. It's on Audible. It's a really good audio version of this with real professional actors that was done by Random House. I read the introduction, but everyone else reads some really great parts and all the different voices. They're playing, someone's playing Linda Moulton House, someone's reading Grant Cameron's thing. So there's a lot of great voices in here. That's Audible and Kindle. So it's in all three formats. And if you email me, I'll send you the introduction. If you email me just to kind of whet your appetite, newrealities@earthlink.net here. And I'll just send you I'll send you a little brief introduction to the book so you know what you're buying if you want to. newrealities@earthlink.net. You can also reach out to me. I'll send you a little brief and PDF. Liane, do you have a question, or you just like is that a yoga position?
It's a new yoga position. It's called atrophy. No, listen, the book is really good. And I have to say something kind of like from a Hollywood perspective in that, and I commented on this when I had my fun little interview with Allan, who was kind enough to give me some time. It has an arc to it, just like a movie has an arc. You know, all these essays kind of build on themselves, just like these events do, you know, and it's very interesting that his book is able to do that with essays from multiple people. That's kind of hard to do, but somehow it happened.
You're right. That was a really brilliant observation because it was what I planned. You start out with the simple.
I don't need glasses.
Right. Put your glasses back on because then it makes more sense. But no, it was, Liane, you're absolutely right. It goes from the simple to the more complex, and it takes the reader on a journey into their own mind to discover what they are. So thank you. That's really a really good point. Excellent.
Yeah. The only other thing I can say is that during the
what's that?
During the John Mack and or Whitley Strieber, I don't know. Like, I was very tired. It was after one of these events, and I just thought, I can't. So let me just audiobook for a minute. And I went into this weird thing, and I totally had sleep paralysis. And in my head, I was thinking at normal speed, actually at a higher rate of speed, going, okay, I know what's going on. Oh, wait, I said, okay. That doesn't mean you guys have consent. If you're not happy, people, get out of here. Thank you. Like, and that all happened in my head. Next thing I knew, I sat up in bed and I looked around like, what was that? So it can also kick things off if you're sensitive. Just heads up.
No, thank you. You keep stretching us into new positions there, Liane.
Yes. I just wanted to say that was an incredible conversation, Allan, and I truly enjoyed it because what you do is you talk about some of the things for some people that may be new, but then you use historical context to bring it back to the present or to the past and show us where it kind of intertwines with everything that we already know, and I appreciate that 100%.
Right. I mean, thank you, Rob. I want to really make sense of what's going on for myself, but for other people, because I've looked at this for 30 years. So people haven't spent all that time looking at things. So how can I make it more assimilatable, I guess is a word, to other people just getting familiar with, like saying, well, maybe the government said now there's something out there. Maybe there is. So, you know, it's a big leap it was a big leap for me when I had my experience. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. And then it's like, it takes a lot of integration. So we've done the groundwork for a lot of people, all of us here on this whole 11 days. So other people can say, well, of course there's life in the universe. How could there not be? Right? I mean, that's what we're laying the groundwork. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Allan.
Thank you, Allan. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
I'll be back. Maybe I'll come in back later and make some comments later, okay?
Yeah.
Would love that, Allan. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, Liane, talk to you.
Love you, brother. Thank you very much. And
I love you, brother.
Thank you, Omar. Thank everybody for watching.
All right, Liane, it's your show, so it's 11:42. Let's go to 11:52, and then after that, we will have a presentation by our.
How about 11:55? Let's give it to 11:55. About 13 minutes.
Okay,
That's
okay,
13.
let's do it.
Okay, here comes some.
And then after, we've got Stone Hobbit coming on, and she's going to give us a extraterrestrial presentation. I'm going to load that up, so we'll do this stretch. And hey, little kitty. And then, and then we will carry on.
All right.
Well, this track actually has a name. It's called Good Times. I think the next one's called Lunatics, before I actually wrote the lyrics. And then the one after that, I don't remember what's coming up. But either way. Omar has permission to use it. Oh, YouTube, God of YouTube. Copyrights. Let's get on our hands and knees. Get back into our containers. Feel where we're touching the ground.